across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is the Late Show with Andre Walker and not Asher Gould, who's just away. I will say we got our ratings figures out and we did really, really well. I don't want you to think the ratings figures were published and then Ash didn't turn up the following day. That is absolutely not what's happened. We're joined throughout the show by Barmy Brunch, or Phin Ed as I call him, from the Monster Raving Loony Party. 0344 499 1000. Barmy Brunch, how are you?
Not too bad.
You lose weight every time. Is it those beans flatulating out?
It's the vegan sausages. I'm no longer on the...
Horrendous. So just to explain, because for those of you that don't know, Phin Ed has got... He printed out a big picture of a breakfast. It was principally beans, rather than... You can see the eggs and the sausage. So he's got a sausage for a mouth, he's got a tomato for a nose, he's got eggs, he's got bacon for ears. Ears are basically a gammon.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Okay, so we had this story a few years ago, and it wasn't true that nobody was called Nigel since the Brexit referendum. However, there is now a story saying that nobody's been called Keir, no baby, since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. Do we believe it?
Well, I was shocked when I first read about it. So this is the story, obviously. No newborns are called Keir since he took office. And that says a lot, doesn't it, about his popularity? It says a lot of things.
Does it? Well, because how many people do you see in a schoolyard or in a playground going, Keir? I mean, it's not.
That's true.
There's only three Keirs I can think of: Keir Starmer, Keir Harding, and Keir Mather, who's also a Labour MP.
They've all got to be an MP.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that short track. If you
no,
want to
I think it's like, so when I was a kid, people used to take the mick out of my name, right? But it was before the Soviet Union fell, and lots of footballers were called Andre or Andrei. But if you have a weird name, it does put you a bit out there. I think if you're named after a Labour MP, your propensity is to become a Labour MP because you're probably from a Labour family as well.
Sort of, you're in the running already. Well, the interesting thing is, Angela, Boris, Nigel, they're still quite popular.
Has Angela ever been popular?
Actually, I don't know an Angela.
Also, Boris Johnson's not called Boris.
No, it's...
Alexander.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you another amazing story about this from this very building. Are you aware of now the roving editor of The Sun, Harry Cole, whose real name is Alexander, but unbelievably, he went to nursery, this is absolutely true, he went to nursery and introduced himself as Harry for reasons he does not know, and then went back from nursery saying, my name is Harry now, and has been known as Harry ever since. That is not his name. But he's the only person I know who named himself. I mean, that's crazy.
Well, and Barmy Brunch.
Barmy Brunch, mind you, I suppose it's not a real name, but of course, his House of Commons security pass has Alexander on it.
No way, how's he managed that then?
Now, I'm going to say one thing that the audience might get angry about. This thing about Mohammed. Right, Mohammed is the most popular boy's name in the UK, but that's because every Muslim family name all their sons Mohammed and then use their middle names. So it is slightly misleading.
There are a lot of Mohammeds, aren't there? So actually, if we were then to say, OK, I wonder if there's
if you were to say every evangelical in Britain was to name all their sons Jesus as a first name...
Well, you can't. Isn't Jesus banned as well?
I don't think anything's a banned. I think the only things that are banned is that stuff that just in general taste and decency you wouldn't get away with. My favourite, though, with kids' names, and I've got a friend of mine who for years, me and him, have always been going through Facebook or whatever, social media, to people whose names are misspelt. Like Kamreem, Cameron, obviously. And what we always do is send the profiles to each other with the words, it's the Irish spelling next to it. Because the number of kids when I was at school, you'd go, that's not how you spell Philip. And they go, it's the Irish spelling. It's not the Irish spelling. It's just made up, isn't it?
Well, what's the Irish spelling of Keir then, would you say?
It's probably, so the way you get the Irish spelling of a name is you get a Scrabble board, you throw the letters in, chuck it up in the air. So the spelling of Kia would be IKYLFBZE. And you go, how's that? Do you remember that kid from X Factor? How's that not egg and ham? Oggion or something. It's pronounced Owen. It's not. It's Oggion. Oggion. So Keir Starmer's popularity. I mean, the thing is with him, I met somebody, and I want to be anonymous here because this guy was really nice. He said that he'd worked with Keir Starmer when he was a barrister, and he said, and he's just one of the most nice and polite blokes I've ever met. He went, it just really surprised me he became Prime Minister. And it was kind of this sort of, I can't believe it.
It's sort of the bloke you don't expect.
Yeah, not that he was a bad guy, not that he was evil, not that he was, not that he was motivated by bad things. It's just, what, him? The one that was dribbling,
Sort of beige wall type.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, I always get the impression that he just got the job as Prime Minister because he couldn't think of anything else to do. You know what I mean? Like, he'd been a barrister, he had a bit of fun at that. He'd been Director of Public Prosecution, he had a bit of fun doing that. And that was it, really.
It's MP for King's Cross, right? King's Cross, St Pancras?
He took over from Frank Dobson.
That's right.
Took over. Let me tell you a great story about Frank Dobson. When Stephen Norris ran against Frank Dobson, you'll remember that Labour had two candidates. As they said, Frank Dobson was the daymare and Ken Livingstone was the nightmare, right? But anyway, Frank Dobson, because it was clear he was going to get beaten by Livingstone, what Steve Norris told all of his PR people to do, and every Conservative, was to go on the TV and radio and go, oh, poor old Frank. And literally he was just referred to as poor old Frank for about 6 months of his life. And in the end, his career was just in the end was just this mocked teddy bear. Anyway, you've got some stories for me.
Right, well, that's the main one, the one we're kicking off with.
So I'm going to say, on the issue of Mohammed, I will say, in defence of Muslim people in this, and I believe immigration is out of control. However, if every person in one religion gives a child the same name,
it's going to skew it.
It's going to
skew it. And I think you've obviously got that, but that is your spot on. Mohammed tops the list.
Do you know English Heritage have a surname endangered species list? So on the list of so forget the double barrel names, which they don't tend to count. But you know how like people in the First World War all sounded like they had old fashioned names like Harry Patch and things like that. Well, it's because names do change over time.
Dorothy.
And so Bonneville I remember's on the list, isn't it?
Yeah.
On the endangered species list of surnames.
The other ones though that are, so you got Mohammed number 1.
Yeah.
Noah number 2.
What?
Yeah, Noah's number 2. So that must have a... I mean, there's obviously Noah from the Bible. There's that.
Yeah, but how many Noahs?
Many Noahs. Is this can't... Are they having us on here? It's from some real source.
No, it won't be from a real source. It'll be like that. It'll be like that Dave Gorman, where somebody's paid. Do you remember that survey where 50% of people believe the fizz has gone out of their relationship, and it was sponsored by SodaStream? Like literally, SodaStream had gone out and done a survey about when the fizz and the sparkle disappeared from their relationships. Unbelievable. Okay, so apparently this is from the Office of National Statistics.
Yeah.
Although Mohammed also is spelt lots of different ways.
It is.
I wonder if the Irish spelling of Kia, which I think was IJKXYZ, I wonder that's counted. Okay, what else have we got?
So, that's our names. Did you know about the guy...
Almost certainly not.
Did you know about the guy who's been banned from a park somewhere in this country for having a specific machine that fires oranges at teenagers? So this is the granddad. He's actually a granddad. He's developed this
When you said a granddad had been banned from parks because of his interaction with teenagers, I was extremely concerned. He's firing oranges at them. I think I've seen this. Why?
Yeah, so apparently it is a park where it's been littered, it's been abused by a lot of different things, and he's just chosen to target what he thinks is the perpetrator.
Well, first of all, it's assault, so you can't fire stuff at people or throw stuff at them. But if I shoot you with an orange and it splats into the ground, surely if there's a nice summer, you'll end up with orange trees sprouting.
Isn't there some Spanish festival where they don't do it with oranges? Is it tomatoes? There's a tomato throwing.
Is there?
I'm pretty sure somewhere in Spain, definitely a European country where one of the festivals they do is they just pelt each other with sort of...
That's the sort of thing they do. I mean, it's like that running the bull. Leave the bloody thing alone. Yeah, I mean, let's get a bull to run after us because it might get us. Well,
and it does every year.
Yeah, let's not. Let's not get gored by some...
Yeah, exactly. Let's not have 2 people that die every... Yeah, and I know about that festival.
And the other thing is, what is that? Bullfighting. Let's all dress like a 17th century male prostitute and anger a bull. Right, why do you want to do that?
And run down the street. So that's that. Yeah, so he's been caught and given a caution and then banned from the park. So they have taken action on this guy.
I do agree with that. I do agree with that. By the way, on the subject of fruit, I just want to tell you this. My dad's house, I got a load of blackberry and a load of strawberry seeds and just threw them around. Right, so my dad's got a front garden and a back garden, but he's got a side bit that's just got all these historic trees in it. And I'll tell you, have they all grown massively? But who knew wild strawberries taste of nothing? Nothing.
Well, this is just sort of water.
He just tastes of water.
Yeah.
So basically, he's got to pick all these strawberries and throw them in the bin. He said, "I'm going to bloody trim those strawberries. You've had me work." He's become a professional fruit picker.
Maybe he should pair up with the orange guy.
Yeah.
They should be chucking strawberries at people. I think strawberries is easy. If you get chucked by a strawberry, it's like if someone like Farage, when they chucked the milkshake at him twice, if it was a strawberry, I think it's like...
It's not as bad. I mean, a strawberry would be an amusing sight, wouldn't it?
Right, you wouldn't get done for assault, which I think both...
No, I mean, depending on the velocity of the weapon. I mean, if you fired an orange, particularly, I mean, I don't know what other fruit could you get because some of it's not ripened, is it?
True, it'd need to be ripe. I could see a grape going far. I could see a grape doing a good job.
What? Right, so it's Alan Partridge, 03444991000. What fruit do you believe would fire the furthest if loaded into a cannon?
And have the least chance of you getting banned from a public park?
I think throwing or shooting people in any way, shape or form, and shooting people I've got form on, if I'm being entirely honest. I have been in trouble for accidentally.
Your past life?
No, I bought an air gun and things went wrong. But we can't discuss it on air, unfortunately, for legal reasons. But anyway, I'll tell you, the guy came out of nowhere. No, I'm joking, that's not true. Okay, so we have got an amazing story coming up that Barmy Brunch is going to lead on just in a couple of moments. If you turn off, you are going to bitterly regret it. Back to Mo. Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk. Okay, so for people like me who are massive fans of Discovery Plus, we noticed our favourite politician, Barmy Brunch from the Munster Raving Loony Party, appeared on one of the network's biggest shows. I'll tell you what, before we talk to you properly about this, Phin Ed, let's see what was on 90 Day Fiancé, and that is on Discovery Plus. Take it away.
Hi, I'm Finn. I'm 33.
I'm a radio presenter from Bath, but I'm also a member of the Monster Raving Loony Party. Would you vote for me? I decided to run as an MP against Jacob Rees-Mogg, the MP for my home constituency, just outside Bath, because I wanted to highlight just how bonkers politics is. I got a few votes, more than I expected, and if it made one person smile, then I've done my job.
Oh, okay, here we go. It's come off. Hey, Barmy Brunch. So, right, so now we've discovered that Barmy Brunch, a.k.a. Phin Adams, is actually a bald ginger man with a goatee, right? Okay, so 90 Day Fiancé. Most people, let's be honest, have seen the show, but can you explain what it is and how you got involved?
Well, first of all, really good to be here. So ultimately,
Really good to see your face, but it's slightly strange.
We always play to it, don't we? We always say, well, you're never going to know. Now, this is the big reveal. We also do the big reveal on the show. So how
Which was, to be fair, a bigger reveal, if I'm being wholly honest.
Well, oddly enough, when I first joined this place, the reveal was going to be that night, but it was the same night as when you-know-who was nearly assassinated.
Oh, yes.
What a wait. So we were like, we're not doing it tonight.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I must admit, I was slightly concerned when Donald Trump got shot and the person I was working with on Earth was dressed as a plate of beans. I mean, it wouldn't have worked. That would have been disrespectful to end disrespectful. But anyway, 90 Day Fiancé. Come on, what is it? Because I've seen it, you've seen it, but some people haven't.
Yeah, exactly. So essentially, it's what it says on the tin. You're given a period of time in which you've got to decide what your relationship is about. So it's touching with long-distance relationships, people who've met across all over the world. There's one Brit in this version, and that Brit will have met someone from somewhere else. And they're either in a long-distance relationship that could work, might not work, might end in disaster, might end in proposal, or...
So this is all about exploring people who've met online and seeing what's going to happen in real life.
Exactly. And often it is online, and actually the stuff, most of the couples, so there's not just me, there's also a variety of different people who have basically these long-distance relationships. Most of them did meet online. The interesting thing with Sandra, who's actually in the room next door, too shy to come here, too shy to meet you.
Sorry.
She's here.
Just to be clear, so Sandra, who is your fiancée on the show, the person that you...
Well, yes. Fiancé could be, or fiancé to be, for some people, and I can't spoil anything, it doesn't always work out.
But let's just be clear. She was fine going on Discovery Plus, which does have one or two more viewers. Yeah, absolutely. Massive streaming service. She's going, oh God, that Andre Walker, that's a bridge too far.
Step too far. No, because I think she'd see me. She watches from Brazil every time I'm on here.
Okay.
And she was like, right, I'm just going to stay outside.
No, she was going, that hairy one who looks like he's off Star Wars. Oh, he's the one that she's afraid of. Anyway, we've got a clip, and this is Finn. Finn reveals how he met Sandra.
We first met in a really unexpected place. In 2007, I flew with my mum to Brazil to visit my sister, who was volunteering in an orphanage. It was actually my sister who introduced me to Sandra. She was 17, I was 16, and she was living in the orphanage. Sandra told my sister, in Portuguese, that I was cute, and I had a nice smile, and my sister translated that. It was an unforgettable moment. It was the first time in my life that a girl had actually paid me a compliment and said something nice about me.
But you were ginger at the time, so that is understandable, if we're being honest. And also, yeah, no, I know. I embrace it. I don't care.
You said to me while that clip was being played, "You've done well." Yeah, I don't know if I should have kept this on.
In the words of our good friends from Lee in Lancashire, she's bar eight, if I'm being honest. But okay, so
we're
so I'll be honest with you. When you said you'd gone to Brazil and met somebody in an orphanage, once again, that was...
It doesn't always read well.
You were the same age.
Read the whole.
You were the same age.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So I'll tell you what. This is better than the BBC, isn't it? Let's be honest.
So ultimately, we are one of 7 couples. So there's actually 6 this series, and then one from the previous series, and we basically talk about our story. A lot happens in our story. So far, if people want to catch up, we're in episode 4, and. So tell
us what's happened in the episode so far.
Yeah.
I know this, you know this, some people don't.
Yes. So the big reveal was me taking my mask off and saying, right,
but
this
nobody
is it.
knew who you were before.
Well,
And
211
now
people who voted for me.
Now they still don't know who you are, but at least now you're less identifiable.
Yeah, that's it. So it's slowly narrowing down. My day job is slowly people are going to go.
That's right. That's right. We liked him when he was a beanhead.
It was an easier life.
But when she saw you with the beans on, which was more ginger, you when you met her in Brazil, or the beanhead itself?
I think it reminded her of previous days because she'd drawn the short straw. I think ginger person.
What you could do is roll it. No, they're all right with that in Brazil. Trust me. I went to Colombia. It was like turning up. It was like turning up and being George Clooney. They loved it. Absolutely loved it. They got no taste, South Americans. Don't worry about it.
So we met in 2007.
Yes.
So a long time ago. It is a real love story. We stayed in touch since meeting. She went on to have 2 kids, and the show basically explores that. It explores what I've done since, and that's dressed in a bean mask, done other bits and pieces.
So what you've done since is, let's be clear, dressed in a bean mask and done nothing else, right? No, don't just add a comma in there as if there's nothing. There's nothing. I've dressed in a bean mask and stood next to Jacob Rees-Mogg, admittedly with a glazed look on his face.
And she's then gone on to have 2 kids in Brazil with someone else. They then split up just after one of the lockdowns. It was. So it was ages ago.
So basically, she's one of the people who, during lockdown, realised how much she hated her partner, which she wasn't the only one, let me tell you.
Yeah, there were lots
of... a fair number of people.
Yes.
So what happens in the show? You're now going to... What, she comes and lives with you, or
they
what?
went out and filmed us in Brazil, and up till the end of the
Is that
next
because she
episode.
struggled to get a visa to the UK?
Well, that is part of what we're exploring, because that's the thing.
Oh, without a doubt.
It's not just us that are sort of trying to make a decision, because to be honest, the honest truth is, where we are in the story, it could go either way. It could be she stays in Brazil. She certainly doesn't want to come here.
I was visited by a friend after lockdown, and I made a point to the Home Office on visas, something very simple. Look, you placed us all under house arrest, right? So we started meeting people online, right? That's the truth, isn't it?
So
you can't say, oh, you're meeting somebody in the UK that you've never met in real life before. Yes, during a period when it was illegal to walk out of my house, yes, I did meet people that I hadn't met in person. I mean, of course, it's garbage. But I got that letter back from the Home Office and just thought, oh, do you know what? Paris is 2 hours on a train, bugger it.
You go, yeah, that's it.
That's right. I mean, who cares? I can't be. I mean, I thought to myself, if I ever wanted to bring anyone to the UK, at least there's always the small boat option. Don't worry about the visa.
The closest place is there's someone from Turkey who's looking to come here. There's someone from the Gambia who's looking to come here. So a bit further afield. There's someone from Brazil. They've got someone from... Who else have they got?
But to be fair to Brazil, right, so there's always going to be allegations, and no doubt people watching the show will be fairly negative about people who meet people online.
Oh, we've got hate.
I get that. But at the same time, Brazil isn't Wigan, right? It's not that bad.
It's not that bad. To be honest, I've been out there.
Pete Barnes is up next.
I've been out there and I've loved it. I thought I could live here.
I think it is, and it's getting richer and richer. And I've got to say to friends of mine who are from countries like that are sort of, they've been poor but they're becoming richer. The public services are infinitely better than the UK. Infinitely better. If you've got a problem with your teeth, your eyes, or anything, you want to get
dental care.
Oh, unbelievable!
Yeah, the best you'll ever have.
And if you were dating a Turk, though, you could have had a hair transplant.
There's a guy. I could have done that. Could have done other stuff. Who knows? I didn't. I went with the Brazilian and.
Okay, so I can't believe there's been negativity about this, because in a sense you have cheated a little bit by actually knowing her already. But this is your mum's reaction to all of this.
Mum keeps her cards close to her chest, but now I'm about to head out to Brazil. I want to find out what she really feels about my relationship with Sandra. Obviously, it would help if I knew a little bit more Portuguese.
Have you started learning?
Yeah, I can say hello, goodbye. Well, yeah, I've not put a huge amount of effort into learning it. I think part of it is just like a defence mechanism. If I don't know the language, then I don't have to take the step of going any further.
Yes, so you have to work through that.
There is a bit of pressure on her side, I think, to sort of move things forward.
Yes.
What's your sense of everything?
Well, I know Sandra says that she's very much attached to you, but I wonder whether that is you, the person, or is it the lifestyle that you could have together? Is Sandra wanting just an exit card?
This is a weird thing, though, isn't it? Because I mean, I think people that marry only for love are a bit silly, really, aren't they? Because what you should do is you should think, well, what life am I going to have afterwards? Well, I mean, look, you could love somebody who would beat you up, as an example, and everyone would say, well, don't marry that person because your lifestyle will be awful. If you turn around and go, look, I mean, I've got a very good friend of mine, Andy. He's a great bloke. He's got a great job. He's worth a fortune. You know how they say if he lost weight, he'd be really good looking? He wouldn't. Right? No, he wouldn't. I'm telling you. Right? He's had one lady owner, and even she didn't really razz him, if I'm being honest. Right? Even if he lost the weight, he'd still be ugly. But he's a good bloke. Right, he's on £350,000 a year. He inherited 2.5 million. He's one of the nicest people. I was considering donning a frock and having a crack myself, if I was being honest. But the point I'm making is that people talk about people being shallow. And actually, quite often, most people are just only interested in looks. And actually, surely it's shallow to be only interested in looks and not interested in personality and not interested in lifestyle. It's more sensible to be rounded.
Well, that's what the show touches on. So there's loads of couples on the show. One, for example, where it ends with him asking her, this is the guy from the Gambia, asking her for some money.
Oh, right.
Just out there, can I have £3,000? That's it.
There was that very famous saddle sore lady on This Morning who'd met somebody from, I don't know, Morocco or something like that. And look, it was very clear that while she was having a lovely time, she was losing a fortune, right? And you think to yourself, well, OK, fine, but ultimately somebody who's penniless and from Morocco, somebody who's penniless from the Gambia, they don't necessarily understand the financial pressures that British people are under, because they'll think to themselves, oh, this person earns 800 quid a week or whatever it is. Wow, my God, they don't realise that taxes have gone up exponentially. And that, an average house in Britain now is like 450 grand. It's just... I remember Lenny Henry, by the way, went to the Gambia, and he said he was living in somebody's house for Red Nose Day. He went, how much did it cost to buy them a house? And they went, 1,500 quid. And he went, all right, fine. But your experience so far in the show has been fairly positive.
It's been positive in that, I mean, Sandra's a lovely person. She'd come across as great if she was painted as a villain. I have some views around being a stepdad, and I've struggled with that. I'm putting it out there, and that's generated quite a lot of anger from viewers, because it's like, well, why is he with this person if she's got 2 kids? And so it touches on that, and that's our story, and we're sort of... It does, there's lots of change that's about to take place, and we're still changing now. Same with the other couples. There's lots of it's a roller coaster.
So this has all been filmed, so you know the end result? Or is it still...
It's sort of in the... what's the official answer? The official answer is a lot of it's been filmed, some of it hasn't, and it could go many, many ways.
Well, of course, the other point to make is you said there was somebody from a previous series, so if things are not resolved by the end of filming...
Then there's possibilities, I think, yeah, and that's the thing. It's a franchise, as you said at the start, 90 Day Fiancé. It's massive in the States. It's come over to the UK. This is now season 4. And, yeah, there's this couple, Sam and Ali are the couple from the previous series. They're on this series
Sam
as
and
well.
Ali, isn't that the thing you get with eggs?
That's salmonella.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Sam and Ella would be a good couple.
Yeah, that's right. I went to the Lake District, and there was people buried next to each other called Dick and Fanny, which I thought was superb. But anyway, look, we're having a bit of a laugh about this, but you've taken a big gamble here, haven't you?
It's a gamble
because you've gone on the show. You're gambling your reputation. You're gambling love. You're gambling relationships with your family, and not everybody's been positive.
No, and we're on that roller coaster. It could go anywhere. This is the thing. It could end up in. But
why has there been an online backlash? Because I think you're a nice bloke. We've had a bit of fun on this radio show and TV show on many occasions. But what do you think? What do you think it was that rubbed them up about you? I can probably guess, but just go with your own thoughts.
I think if we're going to touch on it, I think it was the fact that I am basically saying, I'm not so comfortable with being a stepdad. And for a lot of people, first of all, a lot of people think it's a real privilege to have kids, and I get that. Secondly, people think that having kids, if you're not going to have kids, you shouldn't be with someone who's already had kids.
Yep.
So, I respect those viewpoints. I totally understand those viewpoints. the viewpoint they see on the show isn't necessarily the viewpoint I've got now. Things have changed.
Things have evolved.
Things have moved on. Things are moving on. You'll see episode 5.
Can we see you develop as a person on the show?
You know, not only have I literally lost a bit of weight, as you've said, but also there's a weight off my mind you'll begin to see in the show. Things do get resolved. Things do begin to.
But hang on a second.
Change.
This is real life, isn't it? So I remember somebody saying, actually, it's not a great example, but a character from The Office saying, when the camera stopped, I didn't cease to exist, right? Which you did, actually, because you were in the office, it wasn't real.
Yes.
But for you, I mean, presumably, having been friends with Sandra for this length of time, even if you don't marry her, your relationship will continue in some way, shape or form. That may be dating, it may be friendship, it may be pen pal, it may be seeing each other once a decade. So actually, in the end, at the end of all this is always going to be an ongoing process until you drop dead.
Yeah, I mean, it's a journey, right? It is a massive journey, and this thing, it could go anywhere. And this is, we're only in episode 5 at the moment, so it's another 8 episodes left. That's still going on.
And also, you want a second series. Give him a second series.
Come on. No, but I mean, that's the thing. I think, we don't take any of this for granted, and we are just, I was the guy that applied for the show.
And what about this? What about the opportunity that Discovery Plus give you? Right.
Yeah.
So we can talk about this all day.
Yeah.
About us, watching something or maybe even being paid. But you've had the option to resolve something in a really quite structured way that you wouldn't have been able to otherwise. So what's that like? Because it's not probably as invasive as you might have thought.
No, I mean, there's bits and pieces. There's been stresses, and that's the reality. Reality TV has its stresses and strains, but it's also been amazing because ultimately I've got to showcase a love that I've had for a long time on national TV. What could be better? And also, a bit of a plug for the radio presenter role that I do. So, win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, we've all met a bad partner in life, but hope he sorts it out with his family. That does make me sad. So someone's sad about your mum.
I'll take sadness over hate. So someone's sad about my mum. I mean, you'll see episode 5, there's some stuff that happens. It is a roller coaster. It's a roller coaster for all the couples. We've not seen all the couples' stories fully as yet. They're going on like a story arc at the moment. They've just had, the couple that we touched on a second ago.
I've just read this. There's something definitely not right about that woman, but that was to Kev for an earlier segment. It's the system's just been a bit slow. When that popped up, I thought, well, she seemed fairly reasonable to me. I'm being completely honest. But okay. But look, what about your other dating life? What about the in-between bit? So you've gone off to Brazil, and also the other thing is, so in your mind, this woman has become something different to what she was in real life, surely, because you spent a brief period with her in Brazil. So now is it basically every other woman doesn't quite stack up to her because you've got an unrealistic view of her? Come on, that's a fair question. Look at his face. No, answer it now. This like news now.
That's tough. How do I go about answering that? I think the reality is, we are a very unique couple in that we've known each other for so long, and that I think it was like a 1 in a million chance that she could have called me on that day. I picked up, we talked, and we continued to talk. And then 2 years down the line, we applied for a TV show. That's our story. We're not pretending.
Did she call you by mistake, though?
Well, I always contest that. I always say, no, how could you call someone by mistake?
Yeah, she went, oh, I must phone up the hairdressers. 004444 16932. Get the rest of the numbers, Mum. Come on, that's got to be. Well, she's contesting that. She's saying it was an accident, but she's refusing to come on defend herself.
I know. She's outside the studio.
We've offered her the right to reply. She's refused it.
We can say what we like, because she's too shy to come on, so it's one of these things. But I think it is a nice story. I would say, I'm going to put it out there, we're a couple that's genuinely been together, and it's like you could write a book, but instead we're on a reality TV show.
But that is modern media, isn't it? In the way that people used to sit down and read a book, they now binge watch these series.
Right, and you get the whole story from start to finish.
In fact, actually, that's the one thing I do like about series like this, because what with my blatant mental problems, I just can't wait a week in between. It's like these people who watch Coronation Street. I think I've not got the commitment, right? Just tell me what happens.
Well, there's good news
and the answer in Coronation Street is very little.
So you can binge watch all 5 episodes right now on Discovery Plus. then one drops every week. So they do build the suspense. So they sort of, you've got the best of both worlds in that you can binge watch 5. The series continues right the way through till the very end, where we meet the other couples. So there's a big standoff.
Big fight.
A big... I won't say too much, but you'll see from
Did it involve shooting oranges?
I should.
Yeah, they've all been banned from a park.
There's a reason why we chose that story. I was the guy that took the oranges into the park.
Okay, it's important to point out he wasn't.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, so I've got to be honest with you. When I discovered this, I was absolutely shocked. But Barmy Brunch, aka Beanhead, is in fact Phin Adams, who is the chap who was on 90 Day Fiance. That's on Discovery Plus. And I've got to be honest with you, I really want you to subscribe to Discovery Plus simply because we've got to support our man, haven't we? Got to support our man. We hope he wins the competition. I don't know how's it.
It is a bit like a competition, although it's.
Well, you'll beat the Gambian fella. He'll be all right. At least you've got him out of the way. He's all right. I mean, if he thinks his partner's in a relationship with their sibling or whatever.
Well, that was what was dropped the other night. So she said to him, "Is your sister really your wife?"
So they're from Norfolk. Oh, sorry. I see. Oh, it's from Gambia. So I see. Sorry. The implication though was different. So,
yes.
So the implication was that he was trying to swing a lead, not that there was some sort of not they were from the New Forest or anything like that. Okay, Phin Adams, star of 90 Day Fiance. I'll be honest with you, when we first brought you on, I didn't think you were much good, but nonetheless, Discovery Plus liked you, and they got you on. Look, we got to all watch the show. It's absolutely fantastic, and good luck to Sandra, who has refused to come on so far. But anyway, that is 90 Day Fiance on Discovery Plus. Back in a moment. Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk. What a nice bloke, and also I deliberately was very nice about the channel because you never know. You never know, jobs often change, don't they? OK, Georgina is in London. Georgina, you're on Talk.
Good evening, Andre. Lovely to speak to you.
You too.
When I saw that young chap sat in the chair, it was on mute, the television, and I thought that he was one of those Mexican wrestling types who wears a mask. I didn't realise. It's only when I actually put it on so I could hear what was being said that I realised he was one of the monster raving loony party. But I've got to say, he looks much better without the mask.
No, I disagree.
Well, don't be evil. I do think that he should not have any problem finding a lovely English girl. He's a lovely-looking young man.
But isn't the real problem here? Isn't the real problem that this was a love story that started a long time ago? And whilst the show itself has lots of different people who met online, in reality, his story is slightly different because he did meet her in an orphanage when his sister was an aid worker there.
Well, it was. I mean, this is a very romantic story, and he met this young lady, and I think it's lovely.
By the way, I will say one thing. Just we made a joke about it, but just to be clear, even though he met her in an orphanage, I mean, he was 16 and she was 17. They were the same age, right? Just to be clear, he's not dodgy, right?
Well, my goodness.
By the way, as I say, this is not the BBC. It's just not going to happen here.
Absolutely, absolutely not. 16 and 17. Andre, I have shoes older than that, you know. So, I mean, that is no age at all. But it's lovely now that he is hopefully going to find his nearest and dearest. And I wish him the best of British. I wish him all the luck in the world.
How hard is it, do you think, to have a relationship when you are just what is it, thousands of miles apart with Brazil? It's certainly a fair distance.
Well, it's long-distance relationships, I think, are very, very difficult. I mean, you've got FaceTime now, which is wonderful, you know, so you can see the person. But with all this AI, are you really talking to the person you think you're talking to? This has been a real problem with people who've met so-called boyfriends or girlfriends online, you know, and you've got to be really careful because they can have a digital person speak to you, have a profile, and have that digital person speak to you when in reality you're talking to someone in a different country who's going to scam you at a later date.
I mean, it has to be said, there was even a case of a business where somebody joined a Zoom call with the guy they thought was their boss. It was actually an AI robot of the boss pretending and asking them to transfer money into a different account, and they transferred millions away. It is. So if you can do that in a corporate setting, I mean, people who aren't very tech savvy are going to have real problems.
Well, this is like something off one of those science fiction films, and it's getting that way now. You have got to be so very careful. Unless you are with the person, you can actually see them, speak to them, touch them in real life. You have got to be on your guard because there are very unscrupulous people in this world that will take advantage of people who are a little lonely or someone who is looking for love, you know. So you have got to be careful. It's not something that I would have ever done. Not that back in my day, my God, you know, we're talking about the Stone Age. You had to.
Yeah, you had to get your quill pen and put up a message, send a message via telegram, didn't you? On the telegram.
Now you are treading on very stony ground, my dear.
It's like I always said to my mother when I was a kid, were the horses and carriages when you were little? Get out of it.
Hang on a minute. I think when I was little, they used to play with a wheel and a stick, you know. So we're talking all those eons ago. But you know what, Andre? I have earned my stripes, so I do know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but also, there are people who genuinely, you know, do want to meet somebody abroad because they might love the country. You know, the number of people who you know, you hear about them when they're kids who've got a particular interest in a country and end up married to a person from that country. And it's not all just people from poor countries moving to rich countries. It can be the other way around, or indeed similarly wealth countries. The number of British people who move to Spain is unbelievable.
Yes, well, I also heard what you were saying earlier about the ladies who've been abroad and met so-called romantic people abroad, and they've come back to England and taken them for everything they've got.
Yeah,
you know,
that's true.
Well, yeah, I mean, you said it earlier, you know, so there's good and bad in every batch, and I think what you've got to do, you've got to kiss a lot of frogs before you find a handsome prince or princess. So get out there, guys, and start doing some kissing.
Now, I want to ask you some genuine. I'm being deadly serious on this because I believe that young people today don't know how to date or whatever. What is your advice?
My advice is take your time. Don't rush into it. I think when youngsters get to a certain age, they get all these hormones running wild and it's all true love and what have you. But I really do feel that youngsters of today need to take their time. They need to get themselves financially secure if they can. Get a job. That should be your first port of call.
Get a job, you lazy gits.
And then get out. When you've got a few pound behind you, and I don't mean pound in weight on the body, I mean a few pound in your bank account, then go out and start to look for a boyfriend. But, you know, be careful. Use contraception. That's very important because there's a lot of
Lurgy.
about. And yeah, well, absolutely. I wasn't going to say it, but you said it for me, Andre. Thank you for that. You've got to be careful. One has to be very careful of what one puts on one's feet. Never mind what one lets up one's flue.
Yes, indeed. And I suppose the other thing is that we've lost the art of conversation, haven't we?
Well, I haven't, but the majority of the younger generation have, because they're always on these goddamn phones. I've been sat in company or at a family get-together, and the majority of the youngsters are sat there and they're on these iPhones scrolling through God knows what and who knows who. And it just kills the art of conversation. Put the phones away. We have a rule in my house. You come through the door, the phones are left near the door, and if you touch those phones, by God, when we're having dinner, there's going to be serious repercussions.
Well, my mum and dad banned phones at the table, which was badly undermined by my dad using his. I mean, it was only later in life, because I think, obviously, phones at the table are only useful when you've got an iPhone to play with apps and things like that. And I think that's only about 15 years or something. I can't remember how long it is. But obviously that's later in life. But my dad did always undermine it by using his phone himself.
See, I mean, listening to you there, my darling, when you're talking about playing with apps, it shows you're only a young slip of the finger as well, because I wouldn't know an app if I tripped over one.
Well, I'll tell you the app I use. I use Duolingo, the language learning app. I'm quite into that.
Oh, hang on. Aren't they the things that you can get the same kind of things that you actually plug into your ears, and when you're talking to someone in a foreign language, it actually translates?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. If I'm being honest with translation tools, because what you can do is you can literally get this phone now, talk into it, and it'll just read it back in whatever language you want. But I thought, well, what's the fun of that? Yeah, at the end of the day, I work in this job. I only work a few hours a week. Rest of the time, I'm just kind of having fun and stuff. So I like to learn things every now and again.
Well, my darling, let me tell you, you're only a young slip of a thing. You go out and you have as much fun as you can, because let me tell you, life is very short, and before you know where you are, you're an old thing like I am, and the days for fun, even though you want to go out and have fun, you're not capable to do so. So go out.
Listen, I think you should go clubbing again. There was when I was a kid, there was a nightclub in Warrington called Mr. Smith's, and there was an old guy who was 80 who used to go to the club pretending to be Mr. Smith, and he used to dance with all the girls. He had a great time.
Well, I'd love to do that, but I'd be terrified of breaking a hip.
Good God. OK, Georgina, thank you so much. When we come back, the practical problems of age. Robert is coming up straight after this. Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk. OK, let's go straight to Robert in Hertfordshire. Robert, you're on Talk.
Hi, Andre. I was going to talk to you, give you some news on a planned demonstration at the Thistle Hotel in Barbican that's been planned for Saturday. It's been well arranged, but listening to your previous caller, I was interested about that. We celebrated our 52nd wedding anniversary last week, and I've been going out with Linda since I was 16. And I think the secret that we've got is we've hardly got anything in common.
So you like going protesting refugees, and she's more of a homely type.
Well, I think in all the meals we've had in restaurants, I don't think we've ever had the same meal. We like holiday destinations, the same holiday destinations, and we like when we're decorating a room or the house, we've got the same taste. But she don't like my taste in music. I don't like her taste in music. I think what it is, we don't.
Do you like her taste in men? No, I'm joking. I'm just taking the mick. I'm sorry. we do fancy the same bloke, so it's all good.
I think we don't have really bad arguments. We have a rant. She's got a sister that when they used to have a row, she'd give her husband deaf and dumb dinners for 3 months.
Whoa!
No, we don't. She's never given me a deaf and dumb dinner. We have a quick rant. It lasts about 2 minutes. A few cups smashed, and then that's it.
So you are a cup smasher, are you?
Sorry?
Are you a cup smasher?
No, she is.
She is, but not at you. Presumably, just away from the zone of danger.
No, what she used to do when I was younger, I'd come home 3 o'clock in the morning. She'd hit me when I was asleep. I'd wake up with a black eye.
Oh dear. Well, we can't recommend that. But look, what about the whole idea of trying to date somebody from abroad?
Yeah, I mean, my cousin, she married a guy in America. She only met him twice.
Oh really? But did she meet him? Did she meet him first, or did she meet online or something like that?
No, she met him first at a wedding over here, and then I think they met twice after that, and then she went over there, and she's been over there ever since.
But the problem is a lot of this though with immigration, you have to marry them in order to be able to stay in the country.
Yeah, I think as well, going back to when me and Linda was young, I mean, a lot of things have changed since then. I mean, we paid for our own wedding. We saved up and paid for... I was still an apprentice when she worked in the Daily Express. We didn't get no help from anybody, really, which was a good grounding. It was a good grounding.
Yeah, it's amazing. I just wonder, though, here's my next question to you. Has Britain got poorer? Because, I mean, I think that Britain is getting poorer, but you're saying about scrimping and saving in the past, and maybe people have just bigger expectations now than they had before.
Well, yeah, but the working man has changed. I mean, when I was a kid, nobody went abroad for holidays. I was lucky to go to RDI holiday camps. Then it became... Then if you was lucky, you had one car. Now, we live in Hertfordshire. I go past drives. They've got 4 or 5 cars on the drive. Yeah. So the working man's aspirations have changed.
I couldn't believe it when I was watching. I'll tell you what I'm watching on YouTube a lot of the old, I think they used to show before cinema presentations in the 1950s and 60s. And there's all sorts of really interesting details. Like I was watching one little documentary, I know this sounds silly, about the way that this newfangled idea of having mulled wine was replacing mulled cider at Christmas, and how the mulled cider sort of people were very, very angry about it. But one of the things that they used to do in these programmes, probably more 50s than 60s, I would have thought, and certainly not 70s. People who went on holiday picking fruit and stuff, right? So basically what you'd do is you'd leave the East End, you'd go out, you'd pick in Hertfordshire, or sorry, Kent or wherever, for your summer holidays.
No, it was hop picking. Yeah,
hop picking, yeah, go on.
Yeah.
Tell us about hop picking. Did you ever do it?
Yeah, went with my nanny. It was like a holiday, so there used to be all the mattresses used to go on the back of the lorry, and all the men used to stay in London, and the nans and the mums used to take them down for hop picking.
Really?
It was great.
So you'd work during the day, and then at night you'd kind of do whatever you were doing in Hertfordshire, in Kent.
Yeah, well, the men didn't come; they stayed in London. They were still working, but it was sort of like a working holiday for mums and nans and children. Brilliant. Whereabouts
do you go exactly?
It was somewhere in Kent. I can't remember now. But my nan as well, she used to shell peas in Covent Garden.
What?
She was a pea sheller, yeah.
A pea sheller? That's menial task to end them all, isn't it?
Well, as a consequence, she was absolutely racked with arthritis.
I can imagine.
In her old age because of damp, I suppose, handling damp vegetables, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah, because it's amazing, because in those days, Covent Garden was just the fruit and veg market.
Yeah, and Spitalfields.
And Spitalfields.
Spitalfields was the main one. So, Covent Garden was sort of like a posh one, but Spitalfields Market, which is now a trendy it's a trendy visiting place, like a tourist trap now. But Spitalfields Market was the working class fruit and veg market, a bit like Billingsgate, really,
Yeah, I tell you, I've got something about Billingsgate. My former flatmate was the alderman for Billingsgate. In the City of London, they've got this weird system where they've got the Court of Common Council and they've got the aldermen. So they've got like a House of Lords in the City of London where the Lord Mayor comes from. It's amazing. In fact, actually, I think alderman was the most famous local government person ever is Dick Whittington, and he was alderman for Coleman Street in the City of London, which currently has a residential population of 4, which is pretty unbelievable.
Well, there is an Alderman Square just off of the Barbican there. I'm not sure if there's anything to do with Alderman, but it was a bit...
Yeah, it will be. It will be. So what they do is, in the City of London, they have 25 wards. Each one has one alderman. They're all elected for life legally, but now, in order to stand, they all say that they'll resign after 6 years voluntarily. So they all have one alderman, and then they have different numbers of members of the Court of Common Council, depending on the number of the number of voters there. Where it becomes confusing is some wards in the City of London have no residents. So what they do is they allow representatives of business to vote as well, which is normally like the facilities managers and people like that, because they're all ex-coppers and have been around forever. But yeah, I ran for the City of London Court of Common Council multiple times and got tonked every single time. Just absolutely. Really? Yeah, there was one where I think I got 11 votes or something. Mind you, there was only about 150 voters, so maybe 11 votes wasn't that bad. But I didn't exactly go back.
You know your way around the City of London, then? Yeah,
well, I used to be the senior warden of the Guild of Young Freemen of the City of London.
Oh wow! Can you name all the gates? Come on, there's a little test.
Dowgate, Moorgate, Billingsgate, Cripplegate. There is Cripplegate, which probably...
You know what? I didn't think he was going to get that. I'm really surprised. That was the one. That was my trick question.
I've got to be honest with you, and it's probably on the banned list of words from this show, but I think we can all remember Cripplegate, if I'm being totally honest.
Yeah, it's just by the Barbican there, Cripplegate. I mean, I was married in St Giles's, which is right in the middle of the Barbican.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a lovely old church.
But the Barbican is not lovely. Do you know what David Starkey, who's coming on tomorrow, always says? The Barbican is proof that you can build a hideous 1960s council estate high-rise and it still be good if rich people live there.
Well, because I was brought up in Clerkenwell, I remember before the Barbican was built, you could stand on the corner of Old Street and look all the way through to St Paul's, because the Barbican was our playground. Well, it was our playground. So it was just one big bomb ruin. That's all it was.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what really happened. What was it on the 30th of December 1940? I'm sure it was the 30th of December 1940. There was that big bombing attack on the City of London, but it was with incendiary devices that you can throw. And so Winston Churchill said, look, just get on to St Paul's and make sure you protect St Paul's, because even though the City of London's going to be destroyed in one night, when the Cockneys wake up in the morning, they're going to believe that St Paul's Cathedral's survival is proof from God that we're going to win the Second World War. And in fact, that's precisely what happened. What they didn't realise was all the firefighters had saved it.
My area got slaughtered. There's actually an act, you want to look it up because it's interesting. It gives you all the Blitz, all where the bombs dropped during the Blitz, the streets and everything.
Yeah, I've got to leave it there, Robert, but it's absolutely fascinating. I was thinking of writing a book, Britain's craziest political titles, and getting people like the Bearer of the Purple Rod and Alderman of the City of London, all these crazy things that still exist, and listing what their jobs are and what they do. Anyway, we're going to be back with the press preview just in a couple of moments with Peter Barnes. 0344 499 1000, back in a mo. Oh, the time is wrong. Back in a mo now.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, we got our ratings figures in yesterday, and there was more of you than ever listening to our show, so thank you so much. I just wanted to point that out for one very simple reason. No, maybe for two. Number one, these figures take into account the fact that James Whale has gone into retirement effectively. He's now in a hospice. We wish him well as usual. We've still got our fingers crossed because miracles do happen, certainly when it comes to medicine and cancer treatment. Also, the day after the ratings were released, Asher Gould is off. There is no connection between these two things, right? He's just on holiday for today and tomorrow. So we're going to have David Starkey and Danielle Nichols in tomorrow, ably covering for him. I think more than ably covering for him in the case of David Starkey. But OK, we're here. This is the press preview with Pete Barnes. Pete, what have we got?
Oh, well, it's
By the way, before we start, let's talk about the world's oldest baby.
That story really threw us for like 2 minutes there. Just like, what? Sorry?
What is the world's oldest baby?
Yeah, it seems to be like some embryo fight. It's like 5 days old and then it's just been born. I find a lot of it very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I feel like a lot of this stuff is going a little bit too fast.
Yeah, maybe sort of saying, well, if you were a test tube baby, would you admit it?
I feel like it'd be a great kind of, do you know what those two truths and a lie thing at these silly corporate stuff you have to go to? That would be a great one, like which one's true and a lie and everything. I think that...
Because they don't call them test tube babies anymore. I think it's called IVF.
Yeah, IVF, yeah. I don't think they call them that anymore.
Test tube babies.
I don't think they were ever actually called that.
Great, OK, what have we got?
Yeah, so we're looking at the Express first. This is a great story, but but in terms of actually the reality of it, this is a depressing story and a very troubling one. We got record number of foreign sex offenders in British prisons. You know, is it me, or does Britain just seem to be a cesspit now for every wrong and imaginable? We just seem to import them here, and then we either put them up in a hotel, or we then put them up in a prison, which is essentially a hotel. Yeah. And they seem to get like whatever they want.
This is a question that I know you don't know the answer to, but I throw it out there anyway. How many of these people did not consider themselves sex offenders until they came to Britain?
Yeah.
And what I'm talking about specifically is third world behaviour towards women.
Yes, I think this is a really good point, because there was a case not so long ago, wasn't there, where it was a gentleman, he said, I think he was from Afghanistan, and he said, I wasn't aware of the cultural practices. Now, whilst I feel that was a very coached line from the defence, I don't think that it's a wrong in principle, as in, well, what do you expect when you bring somebody from that country into our country and you just kind of just drop them in it? Yeah, in a way, you are kind of rather setting them up. However, they shouldn't be here in the first place.
But that is, and this is the bit that people don't like us to say, that is cultural enrichment.
Yes.
You've been enriched with mutty magic. You've been enriched with female genital mutilation. Because there's just this assumption that every bit of culture that's brought to the country will be an improvement on what was there already.
Yeah.
And actually, do you know what? Afghanistan's a dump. It's a failed state. I'm going to stop talking about Somalia, because I always used to give that as my example. But look, there are plenty of dumps in the world.
Yes.
And actually, my view is a lot of the reason why Afghanistan's poor is because the people are backward. Yeah. I'm not saying they're inferior in any way. They just haven't quite learnt everything quite yet.
You know, when your society is dominated by a religion that's still stuck in about the 8th century, what on earth do you expect?
Well,
that's right. There are connections here that we have to stop denying. You know, for too long we've always denied the impact of Islam on societies. We say, it's nothing to do with the religion, it's nothing to do with that. It plays a big role in a lot of this stuff, and when we're willingly importing it into our country, and we're seeing these types of statistics, so, you know what, nearly 7,000 overseas inmates in already overcrowded prisons. We're not only paying for that, but we're paying societally, for want of a better word. That we're paying. There is a cost to this. That, you know, I think we're starting to see a lot of kind of the people who are all, you know, refugees welcome and everybody can come, whatever. They're starting to be rather hit in the face very sternly with reality.
Have they?
Well, some of them are doing a little bit of a 180, but I think whether they like it or not, these statistics are undeniable, and they are becoming... It's interesting how mainstream they've become now, because this kind of story would have been on the kind of a web page, no one would have ever heard of. Now, it's headline news.
Yeah, so
that Overton window conversation, which I really hate this phrase because it's everywhere now, is actually really interesting about how this country is now willing to talk about these issues and they want action done.
When I worked at Breitbart, we were accused of being very, very dishonest, which we weren't. What we did was, it was all about news values. We would say, well, OK, we will report this, we will not report that. I mean, I remember the We Are Stockholm, we got into a lot of trouble for this, although it was true. The We Are Stockholm concert every year, the festival, they knew that there were foreign sex offenders lurking there, but what they used to do was just tell the press not to report it because they didn't want to undermine confidence in police. Right.
Yeah.
Now, when we ran it, the media hit the roof. People said, how dare you report this? And we were saying, well, but effectively you're using teenage girls as bait for foreign perverts you brought in.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, David, take that last part of, like, you know, they kind of... these people are being seen to have, like, played an active role in this, and it's interesting how the amount of mud being thrown back. You know, you saw, is it Peter Kyle, like, you know, in his comments on Nigel Farage, you know, I'm a known critic of his, but that comment about Jimmy Savile was utterly ridiculous.
Yes, it was.
But this is the point. They're now,
and also coming from a guy called Peter Kyle.
I know, yeah.
I mean, it's just not.
But it's just rather ridiculous, isn't it? But this is the thing. They are now seeing their kind of grip on this stuff slip. Nobody cares about being called a racist anymore. People want to talk about this stuff. The Overton window, the conversation we're having, is now centred on this stuff that they don't like.
I worry about the whole racism thing, because now if somebody was genuinely racist, nobody would care, would they?
No, and it's
sad,
entirely the left's fault.
If somebody, as an example, I don't know, somebody were to report genuine racism, people go, oh, yawn, there they go again. It's the boy who cried wolf.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, we saw it right. We see it with Putin. You know, everybody was a fascist since George Bush Jr. You know, now you have an actual one literally marching into Europe, and nobody cares.
That's right.
Because you've called everybody who happens to be a little bit centre-right a fascist. You have ruined it, and because of that, when these things happen, nobody cares.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, the other thing about Vladimir Putin is that there is a great sense of people going, they're all as bad as each other. And that has been a narrative that the left have successfully put out.
Yes, definitely. The one thing I will give the left, and I don't like to give them credit, is their ability to control the narrative has been stellar. The right just gave up. Realistically, you know, when we gave up the kind of cultural arguments, when we gave away a lot of the kind of moral authority to places like Hollywood and stuff, you know, they really capitalised it, and it really has proven that the politics is downstream from culture. That once you get a grip on the society, you can dictate whatever you like politically.
But what about your view on this, which a number of people have said to me that unfortunately the UN is the Sith temple, if you like, and effectively it's them that have started all of this, you know, fake news, all of this, you are a fascist, all of this sort of using democratic institutions to disguise your own racism and hatred. And actually, when we set up the UN, this idea of having dialogue was first and foremost in our minds, and I think that's sensible. But now it's turned into not a one world government, but an ability of the majority, you know, dictatorial, badly run states to tell the decent people that they're wrong.
Yeah, I think you're right there, because I always, you know, people who are so kind of like all in favour of democracy and all the rest of it are usually have nefarious actions behind them. You know, anybody who's really in favour of something, let's go through their hard drives. It's a solid rule of mine. But what's interesting is when the UN was set up, we still had the Security Council. The grown-ups were still in charge.
Yes.
That Security Council, in reality, is not as powerful as it once was, because the kind of soft power of the word UN is carries more weight now.
Yes.
And I think that's the real change, is that whilst in practical terms the Security Council still dominates, but in terms of its kind of ability to influence, its ability to push change, the kind of the more talking shop aspect, where, you know, it was get all the little countries talk, the real countries will get something done. But that has shifted massively.
But they now vote for all sorts of crazy stuff,
it's
don't
ridiculous.
they? Was it something like Iran on the women's rights thing?
Head of the Human Rights Council.
Yeah, something like that.
Now, the idea of that is the same idea of free trade. Is you know, if you trade with a nation, you get them to comply by your rules, you might get some kind of change. I think we've proven since the creation of the UN to now that doesn't work.
Well, it was interesting, actually. So I spoke to a Supreme Court justice in Latvia, and he was talking about the European Convention on Human Rights, and he offered what I thought was a stellar defence of it, though nonsense for me. What he said was, look, when we were trying to create a genuine independent court in Latvia. We were able to use things like the European Convention on Human Rights, the fact that the British had incorporated it as a starting point. And he said, I appreciate that there has been a reduction in the quality of your courts as a result of the European Convention on Human Rights, but there has been a commensurate massive uplift in the courts in the former Soviet Union. And it's almost like a seesaw. Well, of course, that is a good point, and there's no doubt there's been a societal benefit to that. But what he's also saying is, your courts are worse as a result.
Yes, definitely.
And so what's happened with the UN, I'm sure the quality of political debate and governance has improved in Senegal, but it's got worse in Britain.
Yes, yeah, I think that's a really fair point, because I remember during the Brexit debate, somebody asked me which would I rather leave, the European Union or the United Nations, and I said if we weren't on the Security Council, I'd have said the UN.
Yes.
Realistically, in terms of its actual influence on our politics, you know, I actually think the UN, to a degree, I think was greater because we were bound by this kind of projection of big world government, this one world government narrative, which I'd never really put much stock in, but I'm starting to be a little bit more sympathetic to the arguments given COVID, given the increased powers of things like the World Health Organization. You know, we're starting to see the foundations of that really come to fruition, but you know, because I actually still think that the European Union had a purpose. It was just it just completely badly mismanaged in terms of what the project should be. But the UN, I think, was set on a trajectory, and I don't think it knows how to stop.
But here's the weird thing about Dr. Tedros. Now, what do we always say on this show? He's not a real doctor. He's the first head of the World Health Organization to just be an Ethiopian communist, backed by China. But what's amazing about him, Dr. Tedros, fake Dr. Tedros, backed... his priority here was to ensure that President Xi of China did not get into any reputational trouble for this. He was obsessed with pretending that coronavirus came from a bat. Now, whether it did or didn't, he wasn't bothered about that.
Yeah.
What he was bothered about was the reputational damage to communist China. And in fact, actually, he was putting out press releases saying coronavirus couldn't be transmitted between humans when he knew that to be untrue. What amazes me is, some people have sat in Britain and gone, we must give him more powers.
Yes.
What was that? What was that process?
Why? I don't understand it. And I think what it is...
I mean, that is the most discredited man in modern history.
But I think it is the idea that the institution is bigger than one man, that the goal of it, that we're judging yet again, and this is the big thing that's creeped into our politics, judging by intent, not outcome. Yeah. And I think that is what it is.
But we often hear this where people say... yes, but it's better than nothing.
Oh, I hate that
with international bodies. Let's be clear, the Oxfam Sex for Food programme was not worse than nothing.
Yeah.
Right, being forced to pimp out your children for a bag of grain was not worse than those people not being there.
Yeah.
Had you just literally taken the UK aid and thrown it out of the plane, it would have been better than the Sex for Food programme.
Oh, without
a doubt. There's no doubt that Oxfam are worse. I'm conscious, actually, that we're repeating this on the Mike Graham Breakfast Show. So let's go to a break. But by the way, Mike Graham is up next if you're listening on Friday morning. Going to be a brilliant show today. Back in a moment. Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk. Yes, this is Talk. This is the press preview with Andre Walker and Pete Barnes. Pete, what's up next?
Yes, we're looking at the Daily Mirror. This is an astounding story of poisoned at summer camp. This is a story of where 8 children at a holiday club were taken to hospital after a pensioner who was held under questioning seems to have... I don't really know what has happened in this story.
It's one of those where you can't guess.
Yeah. Do you know, it'd be like... the beginning of a Midsummer Murders, and you just got to wait for the rest of the episode. That's where we are in this story. But
I've got a friend of mine who did actually poison people once.
Oh my God.
Right. This story.
We have a lot of mutual friends.
You must not do this. You must not do this. However, during the 1980s, he was one of these young conservatives who was involved in, trying to break the miners' strike and all this sort of thing. He said that he went to a sit-in, a protest, a demonstration at one of the universities, and he said they had a big jar of Nescafe, so he put laxatives into the Nescafe. Oh. And then he blocked up all the toilets. He said, I'll tell you, that protest didn't last very long. That protest lasted about 3 hours.
Oh, my God.
But this summer camp thing, it's worrying, isn't it? But I don't know there's any implication of it. We always talk about the wider context of
I don't
stuff.
think there is any wider context to this. I genuinely don't.
Poisoning's old school, though, isn't
it?
it
Is. You don't get a good poisoning anymore, do you?
I
think the last one was what Litvinenko?
Litvinenko.
With
I don't
Polonium-210.
You get them accidentally. I used to work for Westminster City Council. I used to read the health reports on the hot dog salesman of the West End of London.
I don't think I'd read that. I don't think I'd ever eat again. It's like all those kind of food documentaries. I don't watch them. We got
one bloke, and the reason why his hot dogs were completely safe was because there was no meat in them at all. And vegetables can go as nasty as you like, and you still won't die. Unbelievable. I think we'll move on from the poisoner, because I just don't see that we've got anything we can say about that.
It is one to keep your eye on, because I do feel there is going to be a good backstory to it. Like in the back of my head.
Why are you looking happy?
I don't know. Do you know what? It's since doing this kind of thing that my kind of sense of what's a good story has really changed.
Do you know the worst thing I heard ever about the media is, this is awful, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Nobody I know has done this, but they went, the best story that a news director is always very happy about is a helicopter crash.
Ooh.
Because they go, there'll be attractive women on board. Isn't that awful?
That's
that
terrible.
Is awful. That is
terrible.
The worst thing
Not
ever.
untrue, but
they go, he'll be rich, so there'll be a backstory for him, and his family will all be nice looking. He's died in a helicopter crash. It's horrendous. Horrendous. What's next?
So next is the Daily Mail. We're looking at proof Starmer's smashed the gang's campaign's a joke. I don't think we needed much more evidence, but we're now up to 25,000 this year. It's in record time. Wednesday's arrival alone was 898. Do you know, I've got sick to death of saying at some point this has got to stop, because I don't think it is.
But surely the plan is for us to stop complaining because we've just been diluted that much.
So this is an argument I've actually started to really come around to, is that actually it's about just conditioning us to think that this is normal. Because in reality, whilst we are fussing over small boats, the legal migrant crisis is 10 times worse. The real population rise that we're seeing, what was it, 700,000 or whatever it was in the last report that came out the other day, this is actually driven by legal migration. I would point out to people again, we had an Office of National Statistics that didn't know how to count. They didn't count people in and out. They lost track. They were called for an emergency census at one point. We had that little control over it. When we talk about international embarrassments, this is the leading one.
I will tell you how to break into this country right now. Very simple. Very simple. What you do is, if you want to take a flight from the EU and you want to go to the United Kingdom, well, you get loads of checks at the airport. They might not let you on. You might need a visa. All you do is just book a flight to the Republic of Ireland via London. They let you out in arrivals and say, there's the terminal to Dublin, and you just don't go there.
Yeah.
Now, how hard is that? All you have to do is get a 10 quid Ryanair flight.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
It is crazy, but I've been talking about this quite a lot today, and I hear it so often that Starmer hates this country, and it's incompetence, it's all this. Be under no doubt, this is done to the plan. This is the kind of Starmer's worldview is that it is the world. The nation state doesn't exist.
Yes,
for him.
that's right.
And this is the real point. He doesn't care about eroding British culture because he doesn't think there should be one. This is not incompetence. This is the plan. This is what he wants. Yep. And he was very clear about what he wanted for a very long time.
Yes, but it's concentric. I've always said this is concentric circles. So as an example, I would expect, as an example, the town of Lee that I'd come from, for us to care more about what happens in Wigan than care about what happens in Afghanistan. But he doesn't see it like that.
He doesn't see it because the concept of borders to him doesn't make any sense. It's not a thing. That's why when people talk about sovereignty over the Brexit debate, he was like stunned it like a deer in the headlights because it doesn't mean anything.
So if you read the Bible, which I know you don't, but if you read, well, nothing wrong with that, by the way, but if you read the Bible, basically what it says is people from the neighbouring area can come over to your area as long as it's for the exchange of goods or knowledge, right? But fundamentally, it stresses very, very clearly, do not give your brother's land to a foreigner.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I think you can understand why that is, because what we are doing in Britain, quite literally, it's not literally siblings, but we are taking the homes, we are taking the food, we are taking the clothing from our own people and giving it to people from anywhere.
Yeah, but then again, I go back to the point. He doesn't see it as our people.
He doesn't.
He doesn't see it. So when people keep saying
that central concept doesn't work.
Doesn't work for him. So when people keep saying like he hates his country, he's indifferent to this country because he doesn't think that it should exist. So you know, we put so much value in Britishness, in British culture, in citizenship. For him, it's pieces of paper. It's also a procedure.
It's also Sadiq Khan. I mean, Sadiq Khan gets a lot of
He's an interesting figure in that.
The thing is with him. Look, he loves London.
Yeah.
But I think he sees London as basically starting in about 1960, and what happened before is of no interest to him. So he's a proud Londoner, but he's a proud Londoner for a London that has been constructed much more recently.
Yeah.
When he says, you know, white people shouldn't be depicted by the GLA, that isn't even a symbol of racism, though it's racist. It's just him literally saying, but this isn't what, I don't recognise this London.
Yeah, I go back to 1984 with this, because, not the year, but the novel, because the one we talk about, Big Brother, Room 101, but the one thing we don't talk about is actually the persistent state of the present. So what people like Starmer do and what people like Khan do is they continually rewrite history. They keep us stuck. They don't care. They talk about the future, but the future is now. That's their idea, is that they keep rewriting things. They keep us trapped in this kind of permanent present, as they call it in Winston asked to ignore in the novel. But this is the real point that the left really do put into society, because if you're able to control the past, you can control the future. And if you control the future, you control the past. It's this kind of the idea behind it is
what I find amazing. I like these, you know, these Tony Robinson programs, the worst jobs in history and all this,
I love those.
where he ends up having to go up ladders or get poo thrown in his face.
It's usually poo in the face.
Yeah, and actually he was talking about asphalt pavers.
Oh, right.
And basically he was saying that the Italians had come over and asphalt paved because it was believed that Italian feet were more able to take the heat, right, which of course is nonsense. But what was interesting about it was that his firm view that Britain was a nation of immigrants, and that these Italian asphalters were proof that every generation of Britons had brought in a large number of immigrants. And you think there's about 300 of them, whereas actually what we've got is 3,000 people a day turning up.
Yeah.
And it's similar with the Huguenots, 50,000 in 150 years. We get 50,000 Afghans a year.
Yeah.
We've got 100,000 this year, haven't we?
But yeah.
And it's just, and also the other thing that's amazed me is the way that it's Americanism. We're a nation of immigrants. We just aren't.
Yes.
We're not. We're really not.
That argument, you know, like, do you see it all the time by all these kind of lefty academics? They're like, you know, immigrants built London. No, they didn't.
No, they didn't.
It is a lie. It is a fundamental lie. You know, like, you always tell the story of the Henry VIII flutist or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and our obsession with it, you know, because we have to consistently at all times.
Yeah, just to explain about the flute player. There is one story from the court of Henry VIII that describes a flute player who was described as non-white in some way, shape, or form, because in London 30% of the population are black or whatever. 30% of the lessons about the Tudor period are about this flutist, and all there is one sentence about him.
It's crazy. It is crazy, but again, it is this obsession with, not necessarily self-loathing, but it is a fact that we have to consistently apologise for our existence, that we have to justify why we're
I'll tell you the other point that I would always make about immigration and migration and whatever. You've got to remember, these are fundamentally Saxon tribes. Even the Normans are from Norway originally. They went down to France as a result of conquest. So it's when Samuel Pepys got into trouble for employing foreign labour illegally, the foreigner was from Essex.
Yeah.
Right? It was basically, you're not allowed to have a builder in the City of London who's from Essex, and similarly, you can't have somebody in Yorkshire who's from Lancashire, all these guilds built up in that way. So when you're talking about, the Picts and whatever, the Picts and the Celts, they're just tribes that live 2 minutes from each other. They're not foreign to each other. They're not culturally enormously different.
No, and I think that is the one thing that people keep forgetting, is the aspect of culture. You know, I was in a debate today and we were talking about about Britishness, and someone kept saying, well, what is it? And I said, the fact that we we can't name it, but we know it when we see it.
Yes.
That is culture. That is a shared identity and a shared understanding. I always think that the centre of Britishness is fairness. I think that a number of kind of metaphors and language things we have to do around the concept of something being fair or not fair, I think it puts it very central.
What about David? So David Starkey, I think, improves on Hayek when he's talking about the fact that there are rules that exist that can never be written down. The French are obsessed with writing down rules. Sorry, the British are now obsessed with writing down rules, but weren't historically. The rules on fair play being being Hayek's example. But I think that David Starkey gives another example, the rule on smelly food. Right, it is definitely a rule in Britain that you can't take stink bomb food onto public transport. That rule does not exist abroad, and now obviously, am I saying that we should pass a law against smelly food? No, I'm not. I'm saying that there's part of British culture that considers it really quite offensive to stink out the train carriage
the other one
with
is,
a kebab.
Yeah, definitely, and it's like taking your shoes off on an aeroplane or in a confined public space. You know, these are, you know, it sounds daft, but these are kind of shared values. It's just a shared culture because it is about how you behave and how you interact with each other. Culture is just as much about human interaction as it is about big institutions and all the rest of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we can all come up with. I mean, Hayek gives a brilliant example with the rules of fair play. Britain believes in fair play, but when you ask people what are the rules of fair play, can you write them down? It becomes incredibly difficult.
And people somehow use that as proof that we don't have any culture, that we don't have them. And I was like, but it's the fact that I don't have to tell you what they are, but you know it when you see it. It tells you that there is a shared understanding.
I mean, also the other thing, and I don't mean to be rude, but somebody running around in a loincloth is saying to people across the world there's no English national dress. The English suit. I mean, right? We've all seen it, right? Like literally, it's incredible the way that the way that people get this wrong. Anyway, look, it's 0344 499 1000 is the number to call, and we're going to be back with the paper review just in a couple of moments. Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk. Okay, so that is the Mike Graham Breakfast Show, which is coming up next, going from strength to strength all the time. And we're glad to just lead into it, aren't we, on a Friday morning?
Yes,
so Pete Barnes is doing the press preview with me today. Asher Gould is off, and James Whale is in a hospice. I keep saying this, Pete. I keep saying this. The reality is that with the advancements of technology in medicine, it is possible for people to be days from death for cancer and make it through.
Definitely.
It's
James Whale as well, so he's completely, you know, anything can happen.
The funniest thing about him was at that MBE party when his oncologist stood up and went, I just need to confirm he is ill.
Oh,
because that is...
you know, I never really understood this story. Like, the people didn't think he was ill. I was like... What? Like, you know, the need for people to latch on to these kind of stories I find deeply concerning. But, again, unsurprising considering it's 2025.
Absolutely. So we wish him well as usual.
Of course.
OK, what have you got next?
Yeah, so next we're off to the Daily Telegraph. Now, this is a story I have been waiting for quite some time, and that is Labour's bid to silence the migrant hotel critics. You know, they have been looking for so long to cover this, to cover it in so much secrecy, to make sure the public do not know what is going on, because the absolute abundance of gifts, of treats, of, you know, more than 4 meals a day, of snacks, and staying in 4 5-star hotels is absolutely out of control. I'm sick of that phrase, but it is undeniable now. You know, I've been waiting for a while now that we would have some kind of media blackout around Dover, you know, where the press would just not be allowed to talk about this at all. And I think we are marching very close towards it now, particularly with the Online Safety Act, you know, and they were shutting down access to video feed of the demonstrations in Leeds, for example, over the weekend. You know, we're starting to see the state really start to not necessarily get to grips with the issue, but trying to silence the issue.
What worries me is this: when Keir Starmer says we're going to stop the small boats by flying people in from France, I thought, well, that's fundamentally not the point.
Yeah.
When they're saying we're shutting the hotels, they're not saying because we're sending people home. It's what they focused on is the hotels.
Yes.
Right. So what we'll do is, so as an example, we'll buy the hotels and have them as hostels instead. That's closing a hotel. It's not closing a hotel. It's not doing anything of the sort.
This is very typical of the Starmer government. Is in their language,
they willfully misunderstand.
Yes, that's it. You know, in their language, they have done exactly what the public want them to do. Now, whether it is an intention is a different matter. But you know, we see this time and time and time again. But you know, this story doesn't surprise me at all. You know, I look at how the state reacted over COVID with lists of journalists that dared to criticise them. We're now going to start to see the same thing because this is an issue that the government knows the country cares about, but they has no intention of doing what the country wants them to do.
Because the answer, it seems to me, is very, very simple. The courts have ruled on multiple occasions. If you are an Afghan in this dodgy data breach, which I don't believe for 1 second, 18 months before we even noticed it happened. Right, 6 people mentioned online, but okay. But look, these people do have a right under the Human Rights Act to come to Britain, right? These people arriving on small boats, when they say we are modern day slaves because we were brought here to, we're paying the people smugglers from money we're going to get from your benefits. That is effectively all this slave labor. This is modern day slavery, indentured slave labor. It is a fact that the law of the land says they're allowed to be here. We need to repeal the law. We had a guy phone up the other day, and he a nice bloke, but he said, we should send out the SBS. No, it's not we can't stop them, it's we won't stop them.
Yes.
And that's a fundamental difference.
I think one thing people have to remember, this is a matter of political will. There is a way to stop the boats. There is. But I don't agree with using the Navy isn't necessarily the right answer. But what we're going to have to also start to get to our heads around as a country is that this is not going to stop tomorrow. Even if Nigel Farage got into power and into number 10, the boats would not stop that day. They simply wouldn't.
Can I ask you this question as a Conservative? Yeah. I'm a former Conservative. I'm not a former Conservative. You can't resign from that party. You can't get out. You can't get out.
It's easier to get out of a gym.
I'll tell you, I've emailed them multiple times. Please, can I resign from the Conservative? Anyway, but I saw James Cleverly, good bloke, like him a lot, and you know, kind of quite practical guy. He stood up at a dinner that I attended, and he said the following. He said, I get annoyed about the fact that I'm getting blamed for things that aren't my fault. When I was Home Secretary, I told the department I wanted to stop the small boats, and they said, you don't have the powers to do it for whatever reason. And then he stopped talking. Well, the comma should have been, so we changed the law. I don't get, but people have told me that there are a lot of people, it's not just those old relics like Dominic Grieve. There's loads of people in the Conservative Party who love the Human Rights Act as much as Starmer.
So this is the big thing. Kemi Badenoch is holding the Conservative Party together with their own skin of her teeth, purely over the ECHR. Many MPs and the Conservative Party have made it a red line that if she pulls out of it, they will leave the Conservative Party and it will collapse.
But that would be a good thing.
Well, so
not collapsing.
Not collapsing. But what Kemi is actually, this is why her move to have this little committee thing is actually different.
No, let me ask you this next question. So explain to me, and maybe it's because we're both from the northwest of England, what Conservative associations are pressuring their Member of Parliament to keep the small boats coming? Who are they?
I have no idea. But again, these
must be dishonest people who are elected as Conservatives but aren't really.
Yeah, I think there's a great trend of those, and I actually thought, do you know, when the Tories got their kicking in the last general election, we might have got rid of most of them, but those are the ones that stayed, which seems to be that seems to have been half the problem. But
I mean, in the home counties, the Conservative Party are wetter than Flipper.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just unbelievable.
It's ridiculous, but you know, what Kemi's actually trying to do is actually, I think, is a very smart thing to do, which is what, you know, a future Prime Minister should do on this issue, is actually make this less ideological and more practical. Give a practical reason to start to wind out of the ECHR and actually start to say, well, if we pull out of this bit, we've got replacements. To actually start to say that, look, we can still have all the rights and freedoms. We just have to get rid of that.
But we have fewer rights and freedoms. I mean, this is the thing that people don't seem to understand. The greatest diminution of our rights and freedoms in history have been since we integrated the European Convention. I'm not saying that the same thing. I'm not saying it's caused by the Europe, but if you are to talk about denigration of free speech, denigration of democracy, undermining of public institutions, police overreach, whatever it is, Kwangoisation, whatever subject you want to talk about reducing my rights, they have come since 1999, and that was when the European Convention on Human Rights was integrated into UK law.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I thought it was an absolute shameful day just the other day when Jim Jordan, who's a US Senator, had to talk about the United Kingdom and censorship and our rights and freedoms as though we were some kind of Soviet republic.
Yeah, that's right.
I thought it was absolutely disgraceful for this country. I thought it was a really dark day for our history. Though, you know, the Americans spoke to us as though we were some kind of a nation under hostage situations.
Well,
I think we are. And you know, the fact that only now people are starting to realise a lot of this stuff. I look at the Online Safety Act as a prime example. I was railing about that when we were doing That Was the Vote That Was. We railed against it, and now people are only suddenly saying, well, wait a minute, where's this come from? Well, it's been on the books for nearly 2 years. It's only just been what they call engaged, but you know, we have to start paying attention. A lot of this stuff happens because we're not paying attention.
Oh, yeah.
And
I mean, Bilton School, I was very angry with the Courtney Wright thing because I was thinking to myself, don't blame the individual school. Look, at the end of the day, they're no worse than any of the rest of them. Yeah. So I went through and did some analysis on their books, and it was all about how, you know, Mohammed was an asylum seeker, but now he's gay in London and all this sort of stuff. All of the books were about pushing forward a view of the world.
Yes.
Now, look, you don't want. I mean, I went to a private school in Liverpool, which was spectacularly incapable of arming you for the modern world. but anyway,
what a phrase!
So I can see it from the other side, right? But I will say, you know, no interest in real history, no interest in our society, no interest in our culture, no interest in our literature. It's all about you know, Jane's got two dads and all this sort of stuff. And you think, and also, are these books of any value? I mean, I was reading about it was something like a neurodivergent Nigerian teenager growing up as a drag queen, and I thought, let's be honest, that book was probably not very good. I mean, in addition to everything else, it's not exactly going to be Jane Austen, is it? Yeah. It's not going to be a page turner.
Oh, definitely not. But I do make this point quite a lot. But I will say the one good thing to come out of COVID was people suddenly realised what was happening in schools.
Yes.
Because it was now happening at the dinner table.
You've said that.
I say it all the time. And it is one of my big points. And it's because it lifted the lid. People suddenly went, wait a minute, they're teaching what? Because, you know, for a long time, this country has treated schools and education like babysitters. Yeah. So we just like, here, take the kids for 5-6 hours, I'll go to work and pick them up. You know, that's how our mentality has been. But no, COVID really did pull back the veil, and, you know, people have suddenly stopped and said, wait a minute, this stuff isn't right. So we can realize, you know, it is one.
I reckon we should have school board elections like in America.
God, could you imagine?
And have those proper loony ones in.
We are hurtling very close to having judges elected in this country because of their behaviour. And I mean, that is a thing
Can I tell you this? There's a very simple solution to this. Very simple solution. Once again, Brune and his Judicial Appointments Committee. Get rid of it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Holak wants all the power to appoint members of the House of Lords.
I'm going to say this politely. You sound like you just named 2 people out of Star Trek.
Yes, indeed. I've got a good friend of mine who wants to be Lord Chancellor under Nigel Farage, so I spend a lot of time thinking about this. What's next?
All right, so we're back to The Guardian, so brace yourself. This is the mathematics of starvation, how Israel caused a famine in Gaza. Fundamental lie, not true by any definition of the words to which we use the word famine. It is the same with the word genocide. It is not happening. It is a lie perpetrated by people that just want to push a narrative and not the truth.
What sort of a government gets food into its territory and then steals it and sells it back to the population?
A terrorist organisation, not a government. So, you know, I'm sure we'll get onto it in a minute.
Because the reality is there are people without food in Gaza, but the problem is twofold. Point number one, the Hamas are still hell-bent on smuggling in weapons because they still dream of fighting a war, which is ludicrous. And the second reason is if you want to buy food, you can buy it because aid donated by, and this is the thing that annoys me, Pete, more than anything else, aid donated by Britain is being stolen by terrorists, sold by terrorists to fund both their own lifestyles and terrorism.
Yeah, I just got to pick up something you just said there because
by the way, Palestinian solidarity and people like that don't care about that problem.
Yeah, this idea that they're somehow the better ones. absolute nonsense. But one thing I will say, that we just said that they've got this dream of fighting on the wall. They are merely encouraged by the acts of the West that appease them.
Yes.
You want to give them the big moral boost. Say that they, make them out to be the good guys. Give them statehood, give them what they want, and they are going to continue to do these things. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that the actions of the UK government have appeased a terrorist organisation and have kept a war going.
There is no doubt, though, to go even further than that, and I think you're right, to go even further than that, it has been proved beyond all shadow of a doubt that aid in cases like this makes the problem worse.
It always does. Always does.
Not literally now to stop a famine, but the Gazans have received more aid than any other humans in history, and they're still eating rats on the streets.
Yeah.
And what is it? Mrs. Arafat's worth £9 billion. Or whatever. I'm making that figure
but
up.
It's always those kind of stories, isn't it? But one thing that really always just strike me when it comes to the aid situation, and we're talking about the UN, they just seem to make this worse.
Yeah.
The UN involvement in this crisis, since this crisis began, 40 years ago, it has not, which is why I do think Trump is right to try something different.
But what moral bankruptcy is there from the UN? I mean, the UN and Oxfam, the Sex for Food programme, don't donate to Oxfam, by the way. They're bad people. But anyway, you've got that. So we know about this. So basically, what has happened now is the UN have said, right, let's give all of this aid that we're coordinating. Remember, they're better than nothing. Yeah. Give the aid to Hamas, let them sell it to the people. The people that can't afford to buy it can starve to death, and that will enable Hamas to rebuild up their financial stocks. The Israelis are causing a famine. What sort of moral bankruptcy? Well, you're watching these children on the TV starve. You know that you are doing it in order to enrich a terrorist organisation. Yeah. You don't care.
Well, they don't care, but also you look at organisations like the BBC who put out a documentary knowing full well the connotations of the people involved in it and their links and all the rest of it, and did it anyway. Because we have to get out of the mindset that this is about criticising Israel. It isn't, and it is very blatantly anti-Semitism. I am sick to death of people hiding behind this. Oh, I'm allowed to criticise Israel. No. The mask has slipped too many times, and I am sorry, it is startingly very clear now that this stench of anti-Semitism still lingers in the Labour Party long after getting rid of Jeremy Corbyn. He was not the cause of the problem. He was just merely a big proponent of it.
I've got to be honest with you. I mean, the other thing is, I believe that Israel is, this is going to sound mad, but I think you'll understand why I say it. I think that Israel is irrelevant to Gaza. Irrelevant, because the reality is they've just dominated by a terrorist organisation that wants to attack its neighbours. Right? The fact it's Israel is of no interest. I mean, they'd attack Egypt, except the Sinai Desert is in the way. Right? And
the fact that Egypt closed its border immediately tells you that there is something wrong in this area. There is something wrong there.
And you hear people say, oh, Hamas won the election. They threw their opponents off a building.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not that hard.
What was it Douglas Murray said? The best thing about Gaza right now is you can't throw anybody off a tall building because there aren't any.
I mean, not even Rishi Sunak got to power that badly. But okay, this is the press preview. Coming up next, we've got the breakfast show. I want you all to hang around. It's going to be phenomenal today. 0344 499 1000. If you want to speak to Mike Graham, I'll be back with Pete Barnes in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Okay, this is The Late Show, normally with Andre Walker and Asher Gould. Asher is off today, but ably Pete Barnes has stepped into the breach. Pete, I want to ask you, if you had a child, would you call it Keir?
No.
Okay.
No,
So,
I've always found the name Keir to be a particularly odd one, and I think it's because the guy who I was at school with, who was called Keir, was an oddball. Do you not find that weird, that where with people who are naming their kids, they say, "Oh, we can't call it that because we had a Craig at school and he was a bit of an oddball." Like how that still lingers on.
I've only heard of 3 Keirs: Starmer, Harding, and Mather, and they're all Labour MPs.
Oh God, they are, aren't they?
Well,
that can't be an accident.
Yeah, Keir's not a norm. No, you don't normally.
Yeah,
I mean, you hear Keanu.
Yeah,
quite often.
God, that is a reach. That is a reach.
particularly in some of the less posh areas of the country. To any Keanu's out there, I do apologise. He wasn't even a good actor.
No.
But anyway, okay. So Mohammed is the most popular boy's name this year again. I will say one thing in defence. I believe that immigration is out of control. However, every Muslim family names all of their sons Mohammed and then uses their middle name.
Yeah.
Therefore, the statistic is slightly skewed.
So this is what I will say to people. We're going to see a lot of this stuff thrown out to kind of build a narrative around the immigration issue. Not all of it is connected.
Yes.
You know, there's some things are a definite connection. Some things are much more of a third connection. You know, I think we do have to be very careful about. Also, I think political parties have to be very careful about how they start to frame the immigration argument, because there is still a great swathe of this country that is not convinced that, you know, stopping the boats and turning things around is the right thing to do. You know, when people say immigration is the top-rated issue, doesn't mean they want it stopped. You know, people are still willing to vote for the Labour Party.
Also, the Office of National Statistics have in previous years, though not this year, attempted to argue that every spelling of Mohammed counts a different name.
I love that.
That is crazy, isn't it?
I love that one.
That is absolutely
I just love these people who do this.
Mohammed isn't.
Yeah.
It's Jack.
Yeah.
No. What about all the spellings? Yeah, all the spellings.
All the spellings, yeah. But no, and I love this kind of when you kind of pull the statistics apart, and because it's when you get to the end of the year and it's been like, what was the most popular name, what was the least popular name, you know, they bring out all those kind of bits of data, and you know, the minor nerd has never been happier when it's those
my favourite dodgy fact of them all, which is taught in every single politics class in Britain, is this. Well, when people were coming back from the war, they wanted change. That's why they voted for Clem Attlee. And the real reason is that demobbed troops were all based in barracks in the south of England. And basically places like Romsey and Eastleigh and all this went Labour. And then by 1951, they'd all moved back to Manchester and the election went the other way. And it's amazing how that narrative is so built up. And yet when you look at the facts, it simply just isn't true.
Yeah, because again, it's about building a story. It's about building a narrative behind the kind of the progress of things. You know, that word is bandied around like nobody's business. Yeah, it's almost like as often as you hear Keir Starmer say his dad was a toolmaker, you know, the word progress is used to justify so much, and it's not progress. Like you said, the actual more interesting story is the truth.
Yes.
You know, it's actually about how, you know, voter areas can change with shifty demographics. That's an interesting story.
Yeah, and I suppose the other interesting thing that the Labour Party would always be able to say is we have big majorities that have no value to us.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the biggest majority Wigan's ever had? About 25,000?
Something like that, yeah.
Certainly Lee would be up there.
I think for 5 or 6 successive general elections was the highest majority for the Labour Party.
It wouldn't surprise me. Quite often the figure's skewed by whoever's the Prime Minister. So I bet Sedgefield was.
Yeah.
But Sedgefield was a Tory seat in the end.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's next on the papers?
So finally, we've got the I, and this is negotiations with terror. No negotiations with terrorists. Starmer defends ultimatum to Israel, but won't issue one to Hamas. Let me make this again.
What is the I doing today?
Oh God,
they're actually being fairly reasonable.
I know, yeah. Have I read that right?
Yeah.
Just double check. I haven't got my glasses.
No negotiations with terrorists. Starmer defends ultimatum to Israel, but won't issue one to Hamas. Surely they're being critical. They can't be.
I can't be. We've read that wrong. We've been around too long.
Time.
Yeah, we read that. We've been around too long to have that level of pessimism. But again, I'll say this very clearly. This is a capitulation to a terrorist organisation.
Yes.
But I will say that this has been in the Labour Party manifesto since before I was even born.
Yes.
The recognition of the state of Palestine is something that Labour have campaigned on again and again and again. Now, we didn't think they would do it, but again, Starmer with a big majority and a kind of I don't really care about winning anymore mentality. He's just going ahead and saying we voted to 16.
But he sees the big political opportunity for Labour with the Islamists.
Well, people keep saying this.
But there's not many of them.
Yeah, because I keep looking at what you often talk about is the second and third generation who don't have that connection and that bond. And again, we look at the votes to 16 thing where people can say, well, obviously the young will vote for the Labour Party. I think we might start to see that a lot more.
Well, you could turn around. Look, let's be honest, most ordinary Muslims in Britain aren't as connected to the Islamic world as their parents, but they're all obsessed with Palestine. We could just sever our ties with Israel and they'd be happy then, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I think...
I don't think... Because look, does the average Muslim young person give a toss about Uyghurs in Uyghur in concentration camps? No. Do they care about the Rohingya genocide? No. As long as we have a go at the Jews, they'll all be happy.
Yeah, again, and that's why I think a lot of this is rooted in anti-Semitism. Like, if you want to talk about the famine, for example, which was Emily Thornberry's kind of thing about why we must do it, I was like, well, you didn't seem to care about the ones across Africa for the last 10, 15 years, did you? Oh, wait, that's right, because it didn't involve a Jewish state.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we have to start calling this for what it is. It might seem uncomfortable, it might not be intentional, but there is a lingering stench around a lot of this stuff.
But this is the equivalent of Cardiff and Swansea having a 3,000-year war and everyone caring.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality.
Yeah.
There are so many bigger issues when I turn on the BBC...
Oh, we had an emergency cabinet session, not on the cost of living, not on the small boats, not on the decline of everything in this country, on something that's happening thousands of miles away.
And actually, the other thing, we banned military exports to Israel. Look, I was involved in toy exports to Ukraine, and I can tell you that £40 million had I been involved in any military exports to Ukraine, had I been involved in, I would know that 40 million is not a lot of money. God, that didn't go well, did it?
That did not go well.
Did not go well.
Oh, hello, officers.
just to explain why Pete and I are laughing, anything that is intentionally exported to the military, even if they were, say, toys, in my case, DJI high-definition drones, then that would be counted as a military export.
Yes.
But that's not what happened.
That's not what happened.
That's not what happened.
Not what happened, Your Honour.
What happened was the toys were sent and merely stolen.
Audrey, stop. You've reached China. Stop digging, darling. Stop digging. Eventually, the Chinese start to wave back.
Okay. Well, so the big issue of the day, obviously, is the number of foreign offenders in prison. Pete, just remind people, we did talk about it at the top of the show.
Yeah, so there's a story leading the Express that says nearly 7,000 overseas inmates now in overcrowded prisons. These are record numbers of foreign sex offenders in British prisons. This is an undeniable amount of people, but also the cost is a staggering £360 million a year. Do you know, eventually, this is all going to start to sound like real money. So you'll know this, but in the PR world, we have a big problem of the big number problem.
Yeah.
Nobody has a concept of £1 billion.
Yes.
It doesn't mean anything. It's why we measure things in football fields or in things that you've got a concept of. The great advantage the government have is because these numbers are so astronomical, it doesn't seem like real money. And, this is why people fuss over £750,000 more than they do over 700 million.
I mean, we do need to start expressing this figure as what is the cost of immigration to everyone. The problem is the Treasury are obsessed with this stupid view that because immigration grows the economy, because there are more people here, the fact that we're becoming poorer is of no interest.
Yes. And
but you can see people are poorer.
Yes, but I think this is what we have to do, and I think we have to take the lessons from the Brexit campaign, is you start talking about things in the cost of it, but in other areas. Start talking about the societal cost, the cost to our education system, the cost to our healthcare. Don't stop using the numbers because the numbers aren't really convincing anybody.
Do you believe the conspiracy theory which is always a bad question to start with, which is that and you hear it so often that the small boats crisis is our punishment for Brexit by the British government. Because remember, the British government isn't run by Keir Starmer. Let's live in the real world. The cabinets, the chief secretaries are the people that are running this country now. The Quangos are running this country. The courts run this country. Your average member of parliament doesn't know what's going on, right? I think there is. I don't think it's. I think what they've done is deliberately tried not to solve the problem.
Yeah, I think they've.
I don't think they've caused it.
Yeah, they haven't caused it, and I think they've exacerbated it. But I one thing again, I go back to this point. This is their worldview. This isn't a kind of. I don't think this is a punishment.
Just explain that again, so some people might not have been on an hour ago.
So basically, my argument is when people say that Keir Starmer is doing like he hates this country or he hates this or whatever, I don't think that's right, because for me, he's doing exactly what he believes his world in terms of his worldview, in that Britain doesn't need to exist because we're all part of one big world. The idea of borders
and the UN will bring in human rights for everybody.
And this is why the constant kind of obsession with international law.
And so if his view would be, because Mauritius went to an international court against us, was it Mauritius or the Maldives? It was Mauritius. Mauritius. Because Mauritius went to court with us over the Chagos Islands, the fact they are now part of the court is more valuable than the Chagos Islands.
100%. And it's
because that moves forward the court.
Yeah. I've just thought of an interesting thing that I heard just the other day, actually, and it was one of the main architects of the Chagos deal was Jonathan Powell, who is now the National Security Advisor. He was one of Blair's kind of fixers. It's interesting that he has been the actual driver of the Palestinian statehood movement. And again, this is coming from unelected bureaucrats and their influence.
He's never on Britain's side.
He's never on Britain's side. I mean, let's look at the catastrophe that was the Hong Kong handover, which he was one of the main architects of. You know, you put people like that into positions, what do you expect?
So I just want to say the Mike Graham Breakfast Show's coming up next. It's going to be a corker of a show today. Mike is just getting ready to come in. You don't believe that, do you? This is a repeat. So if you want to get in touch with Mike, it's 0344 499 1000. Calls just charged at your normal rates. By the way, just to remind you, if you want to follow us on X, it's
PC Barnes 123
and at Andre JP Walker. As I say, the breakfast show's coming up in just a couple of moments. And I'll tell you what, I think it's going to be a big one today. There we go, just filling time.
I have never seen more filling. Oh my God, we're like one of those salad bars with all the sauces.
Okay, Pete, we were going to plug your online show, but in fact, this is the Mike Graham Breakfast Show coming up right about now. And if you are still with us on Thursday night, Peter's going to plug his online show.
Yes, so you can catch my kind of debut season. It is called Breaking Embargo. It's on my YouTube channel. Just search Peter Barnes and you will find it.
You did get at Peter Barnes,
Yes, I did, because I got it a very long time ago.
A bit annoyed about that, actually,
And when you found that out, you looked at me with such disgust. And
I thought to myself, hang on a second, you couldn't have launched a YouTube channel called Peter Barnes.
No, I did. I managed to secure it over like 6-7 years ago.
And did nothing with it? Has it ever had anything on it?
No, never. I had it as just to have an account. I was always going to start something. I was just finding the time and the kind of right moment to do it more than anything.
Great. Yeah. Okay, so you can follow Pete Barnes at Peter Barnes on YouTube. At PC Barnes 123. Phone calls are next. 0344 499 1000 to get in touch with the studio. I've got 5 slots available, so you are going to get through if you call right now. Back in a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, I don't know if you heard that story in the news. Is it called Councillor Tony Hewitt, the chap who decided to resign because his wife wanted to enter a gardening competition at his local council? Good on him. Do you know why this sounds utterly ludicrous, but is really, really sensible? The reason is because of the quangoisation of Tony Blair's reforms, because of the way that we constantly now have to consult on everything in local councils. Any councillor who ever supports anything that is beneficial to their community has to declare a prejudicial interest and walk out. Obviously, what this guy has done is gone, that rule is completely ludicrous. It's a gardening competition. I'm going to resign from the council. As a result, we need to repeal a lot of those laws because there are situations, loads of them, where councils will be elected in order to oppose a housing development and then get told that because they got elected on a mandate of opposing the housing development, they're not allowed to vote when it comes before the council. Unbelievable. That is the almost uniform stupidity of what's going on. I mean, I remember, what was it, the prejudicial interest that they tried to force our councillors to not vote against the closure of Windsor Fire Station on the grounds that they were conflicted because it was beneficial to Windsor to keep it open. He's a Reform councillor, this chap, by the way, in County Durham. OK, let's go to Tristan in... Oh, by the way, no, let's just say first, we've got 3 slots available now, 0344 499 1000. Tristan is in Southend. Tristan, you're on Talk.
Good evening, how are you doing?
I'm all right, how are you?
Yeah, doing a good job flying solo. I'm happy for 3 reasons. Can I go through them, please?
Yes, you can.
OK, the first one is you had Peter Barnes on the show,
yes,
which always cheers me up.
Yep.
The second one is Chuck has very kindly invited me into the studio on the 14th.
You know what? You're worse than Andrew Eborn for lobbying, right? I mean, you literally... You could be phoning the show to say thank you for inviting me on the show. By the way, when you text me the other day, I did send it to him, but let's not do that much. No, I'm joking.
I'll tell you what, Andre, I'm British. I create my own opportunities in life. That's what I say. Yeah. And the third one, I nearly died yesterday, and here I am today alive.
You met who? What? Yesterday?
I nearly died yesterday.
Oh, you nearly died.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you said you'd met a guard. Sorry.
No.
Tell me what happened, because for those of you that don't know, Tristan is blind as a result of severe epilepsy, and he's fallen over before today. We thought you had some brilliant new drugs. The problem was it had a side effect of dangerous depression, which, obviously meant you couldn't take them anymore.
Yeah, but I was also taking that Ozempic, and tonight I want to give people a warning about that.
Yes, Ozempic. Tell me all about it.
Yeah, I lost about 2 stone weight, and then it just completely stopped, and I was feeling very, very dizzy all the time. So 11 days ago, I said, right, enough, it's making you dizzy. Anyway, last night I collapsed in the hallway, ambulance called out, my blood pressure was 58/80. I came within a whisker of being dead. They had to put 6 litres of water into a cannula in my arm, and it turned out...
6 litres?
6 litres, because I'd lost that much fluid from my blood. What the body had done is all the water in my blood it was using to force through 5 pounds worth of fecal compacting. Andre,
God.
Seriously, it is so dangerous. I mean, if you think... So
what had happened was, let's just put this in layman's terms. The fat that you had burnt off was coming out in your poo, and your poo therefore would not come out, and you'd use that much blood to lubricate your intestine that actually your blood now was not pumping around your body and it was going to kill you. That may sound like a laughable problem, but I will tell you something, it's not at all.
No, not at all, absolutely. But everyone thinks, it's an easy fix, it's a quick solution. I tell you, think twice, because it should come with so many more warnings. You need so much medical...
Well, as I've said to you before today, my mate is a diabetic and has been on a similar drug to Ozempic for his entire life, and he does not like the stuff one little bit, because he says the problems that are caused by it, an inability to gain muscle can be a problem in of itself.
Yeah, it's just evil, Andre. I tell you, I would warn everybody, do not buy it from the internet, which I wasn't. I got mine on the NHS.
I mean, what you were doing was, it would be similar to taking some sugar and water, and that'd be your blood, and then just boiling it for 20 minutes, and whatever's left, attempt to force that down your veins. That's effectively what happened.
Yeah, I have to give my flatmate utmost credit. He knew exactly what to do, called an ambulance immediately, cleaned the house.
I mean, if you'd collapsed, that was fairly obvious.
Absolutely, but nonetheless, he cleaned up after me because I'd lost control of my bladder and everything. He cleaned it all up, did my washing, put it all away, all ready for the morning when I got home in the evening. So
6 litres, really well. So just, I mean, I worry about Ozempic, I really do. Not actually because I think Ozempic in of itself is terrible, though, as I always say, if you take medical advice off a political commentator, you're an idiot, so don't do that. But it's not because I think Ozempic in of itself is the problem. I just think it's about enacting medical procedures that are not needed.
No, I'd agree. I mean, I needed to lose weight. The amount of weight I wanted to lose is off, but don't ever take that thing thinking it's not got side effects and it's easy.
But what did your doctor have to say? I mean, you're epileptic, you're blind. I mean, also, without being funny, how can you get the dosage right if you're blind?
Well, it only twists around so far on the pen.
Oh, I see.
The right reading. Yeah, so every time you do it right. But just, the hospital, they were brilliant because the thing is, everyone thinks the doctor's strike is still on. The casualty was empty apart from one absolute hypochondriac refusing to move because they couldn't get a lift home.
Can I tell you about the story about when I was admitted to hospital for a heart attack?
Oh, please do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, this is awful. Right. So,
okay.
I was doing this thing where I was a pretend witness for trainee barristers, and my job was to be an awful witness. It was all over the place. Where I attempted to claim I'd had one beer in 5 hours and all this sort of thing. So anyway, I'd received, and they asked me to do it because I didn't mind being beaten up by the barristers. So we'd done that all day. And as I was walking out, I felt a pain in my chest that spread to my arm and spread to my neck. So I thought, that's like a heart attack. So I hailed a taxi and I said, right, can you take me to the nearest accident and emergency? And you could see this bloke looking at me a bit funny. And I said, I've got this pain, it's God's man, I'm sure I'll be fine. So I went in, and to start with, the hospital were fairly calm. But I was about 27 or something. I went, oh, look, I've got this pain in my chest. It spread to my arm, my neck. I know what that's meant to be. I'm sure it isn't anything. Can you just give me the once over and throw me out? Well, I wish I hadn't said that. Because the minute I was very relaxed, it all kicked off. And they shaved my chest. And I had this thing that was blowing up on my arm. Like that, right?
Yeah.
So they had the the injections in your arms, in your... Yeah, I saw Train Spotting. I didn't like that. So my arms didn't move. I had this ECG on my chest. They admitted me to hospital. Every 5 minutes I could hear, ooh, ah, right? And then in the morning they said, would you like some breakfast? So I went, yeah, I'll have some toast with no butter. But I couldn't move my arms because I had those needles inside them, so I couldn't eat it. And then, and this was the bit that I think really took the biscuit more than anything else. Ainsley and the City Hospital team showed up on the ward. Right, do you want to be on my programme too? I bloody buggery want to be on your... Get out! Get out! And all night there was this fella going, I'm going to die! Get my Nady off! My Nady's going to kill me!
No.
It was, and there was another one going, I'm going to die now, I'm going to die, I'm going to die now, I take drugs, I'm going to die. And it turns out we had an Irish tinker across and apparently a Brazilian rent boy was next to me. And it was awful. I'll tell you what, I went in fairly good nick. And I came out absolutely broken.
Yeah, what did it turn out to be, Andre?
Right,
what was it?
so this is awful. A friend of mine said, God, I did exactly the same. I got really drunk and got a friend on my shoulders at a concert, and that pulled a muscle in my chest. And then I remembered what I'd done the night before I had the problem. I'd gone to this Westlife thing and thrown a girl on my shoulders and danced around. So basically, I'd wasted the NHS all that money with a pulled muscle in my chest. Awful.
Bless you. Oh, that's what we're paying for, isn't it? But
it isn't. I mean, I was a broken man. I mean, I'd have been fine talking to Ainsley Harriott under other circumstances, but no. I mean, he got a right mouthful. Look, I don't think it was live by the time he came in with the camera. But anyway, Tristan, so you are feeling good now.
I'm in great spirits. I'm really well now. So thank you so much. Thank you, Andre.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's go to Ken in London. Ken, you're on talk.
Good morning, Andre. And Tristan, if you can hear me, I would encourage you, my dear friend, that you might read the Gospel of St. John and seek to know Jesus, because that God gave you a warning. God gives us warnings in our life, so take
Tristan is Jewish. Tristan admitted publicly he was Jewish after the 7th of October attack because he believed it was important that people knew that he was a supporter of Israel. So that's his religious view. I'm just telling you, just for your own interest.
Well, I'm talking about the King of Israel, Jesus the Messiah. So Tristan, if you're Jewish, Jesus is the Messiah. God bless you, Tristan.
Because you're in this odd situation of believing that Israel should be defended, but everyone there's going to hell.
No. Israel are God's covenant people. They're under covenant with the God of the Bible, Andre. And Jesus Christ is the King of Israel. So
but what about Israelis who don't believe? Well, I mean, it's hard not to believe in Jesus. He clearly existed. But the people who don't believe that Jesus was the Son of God,
they go to hell. It's in the Bible.
Okay, well, that's the point I was making. Anyway, Ken,
being a Jew is not a free ticket into heaven. The Jew has to repent and believe in Jesus Christ, the Son of God, to be saved, the same as a Gentile.
Okay, but that's not why you called us, is it?
No, I read in the mail on Monday, and the mail, I sometimes read it, sometimes buy it, rarely, but I bought it on Monday, and there was a very good letter, I thought, and the man asked a legitimate question. I won't give the man's name, but if you don't mind, it's a very short letter.
Yeah, go for it.
After news of Ozzy Osbourne's death, I heard him described as a national treasure. I knew nothing of the man, so I read Christopher Stevens' summary of his life and career with interest. It seems that as well as being a singer, he was a foul-mouthed, violent, cruel, promiscuous, drug-fueled criminal and alcoholic.
Yes.
I know many celebrities have led less than perfect lives, but I was left wondering what kind of nation treasures a man like that.
Well, can I defend?
The national treasure. Now, I'm sorry to talk about this gentleman, but what kind of nation treasures a man of this?
Okay, can I give you the opposing view, Ken? So, so first of all, he invented heavy metal music, and his bad behaviour was unconnected to the music. He suffered throughout his life with alcohol and drug problems, which later in life he did correct. He was a happily married man, and he was a practicing Christian by the time he died, and accepted that many of the things he'd done had been wrong. And so he was never venerated for being a drug addict, an alcoholic, or a criminal. He was only ever venerated for the music. And in any case, in later life, he did repent and turn to Jesus, which has got to be up your street slightly.
Wonderful. I'm very happy to hear that. I never said this to judge the man. I'm just talking about...
No, I understand. I understand. Well, I'll give you some defence of your position, because obviously Black Sabbath has a religious connotation as a name, though there was no suggestion he was a Satan worshipper at any point. But I think also we have venerated somebody, and what we haven't done is we haven't venerated him for being a family man. We haven't venerated him for being a Christian. We haven't venerated him for kicking his addiction. We've venerated him for music by a band called Black Sabbath, which I suppose in of itself could be offensive to some religious people.
Now, if he had been venerated because he had turned to the Lord and changed his life, that would have been another story. That would have been a wonderful story. But anyway, I just thought that was a legitimate question to the people. What kind of nation would...
What is your view, Ken, with somebody like Ozzy Osbourne, who calls himself the Prince of Darkness, who has a band called Black Sabbath? All of that is a show just for a bit of fun, and behind it he is a Christian. Do you say to yourself, well, his private life is private and public is just a bit of fun? Or do you say this man ought to be called to account for the fact that, what he's done in the media is pretty unsavoury?
Well, I would answer that like this, Andre. If a man truly has had a change of heart, he's been born again by the Spirit of God and he loves Jesus, he would bring that into his ministry, his singing. He would have begun to sing about Jesus, because when you know Jesus is your Lord and Savior, you want to tell everybody. You want to help people, and especially if God has delivered him from drug addiction, alcoholism, whatever it might have been.
Yes.
That's a wonderful testimony. But I never heard this man ever mentioning Jesus. But you said this was years later, so I hope.
Oh yeah, so the classic. So just to be clear, the classic songs that would get replayed. I mean, in later life, he wasn't really capable of doing it, but they were from a period where I don't think he was a Christian.
Well, hopefully he died in Christ. I'm not judging the man. Hopefully he died in Christ. There's another quick thing I'd like to mention, if you don't mind, Andre, about Hamas.
Yes.
Hamas, the aim of Hamas is to kill every Jew on earth.
Yes.
And what they've done in Gaza, they have used hospitals, mosques, public buildings and homes for military purposes.
Yes.
Now, the law reveals that this renders them legitimate targets of war.
Let me ask you another question. Let me ask you this question, Ken. So first of all, I've got nothing against the Palestinians. In fact, I think they're the biggest victims of the terrorist leadership, and they've gone through so much in Gaza. To now see the UN and the UK side with the terrorists is just unbelievable. But here's my question. Are the UN, are Keir Starmer going to hell over their actions in terms of saying that they will recognise a terrorist state without doing anything for the people?
No, they won't go to hell for that. The only reason a person goes to hell, Andre, is because if they refuse to believe Jesus is the Son of God and they refuse to ask God for forgiveness. That's why people go to hell. Not because we're sinners. We're all sinners. But Jesus died for sinners, those who will acknowledge their sin to God.
But your sin a few weeks ago was you were a little bit rude to somebody on a radio show. Keir Starmer's sin is supporting a terrorist organisation.
Well, God will judge that, but that won't condemn him to hell. The sin that condemns a person to hell is unbelief in Jesus Christ. The Bible says, he that believeth in the Son hath life, and he that believeth not the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of God abideth on him. That's in John chapter 3, the last verse. And I want to read that.
I have done.
Every Muslim, every Palestinian, every Buddhist, every atheist who refuses to believe Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God, the wrath and anger, the righteous anger of God is over them right now. But God gives us all a chance to repent. He loves us, but we have to go his way to get to heaven, not our way.
OK, Ken, once again, thank you. That's Ken in London. We're going to go straight to a break. And after that, we've got Ali in Leeds. And by the way, I'm still reeling from that story about Tristan. What a really, really unpleasant problem to have as a result of his Ozempic. More next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, just to say that Asher Gould is off tonight and tomorrow. James Whale remains in hospice. David Starkey's coming in tomorrow. Danielle Nichols is coming in. We're keeping our end up. We're still obviously putting our thoughts and prayers forward for James Whale. We hope for a miracle, obviously. That prospect is fading, but we are hoping for a miracle nonetheless. Ali is in Leeds. Ali, you are on Talk.
You're right, Andrea. How you doing?
Not bad, not bad.
So I just want to say, I welcome the decision of the government to recognise a Palestinian state.
Okay, why?
I just feel like it's just a shame it's taken what's happening in Gaza to reach this point. But there's not really much left of a Palestinian state to recognise because Gaza is destroyed and the West Bank is on the verge of being annexed and East Jerusalem's annexed. So I don't really know what there is to recognise.
So Ali, as you know, I think I've been pretty consistent on this show. My concern is about quality governance in Gaza and Palestine. I honestly think that that's the most important issue. I've said before, I would wall off Gaza and build that big port that Donald Trump talked about and just become a trading nation with the rest of the Mediterranean, which I don't think particularly Israel would like, but I wouldn't care. So fundamentally...
Israel wouldn't allow that, though, to be honest.
Well, I think they'd allow it if the Americans owned the port. I think, which was Trump's point.
Right. Well, I don't know, but to be honest, Hamas they don't even control Gaza anymore.
I understand that. I understand that.
The gangs actually control Gaza now.
I understand that, but so look, I think if recognising a Palestinian state moved them any better, any closer to decent government, I'd be happy. But what worries me is it's always these sticking plaster problems. So look, Israel can level Gaza and has done so, right? But the fundamental systemic problems that existed before in terms of the Palestinian people, which is a bad government, aid not getting through, your obsession with war and no interest with moving on, failure of economics, failed states, lack of independent courts, no judicial oversight, those problems will all remain, won't they?
Yeah, you have a point there, but Andrew, I would have the Palestinian Authority to go. I think Hamas should just step aside. They've caused so much. They have caused the destruction of Gaza. So they should go aside. The Palestinian Authority should come in, run Gaza as they run the West Bank and they reform themselves, and then eventually you can move on to a different stable government. But for now, I would have the Palestinian.
Well, I'm kind of half with you, Ali. I personally want a Jordanian governor to run Gaza. And what I want to do, like Mikhail Saakashvili in Georgia, all the police get sacked and new police get hired, probably from other Islamic countries, start building courts. And I know it sounds really boring, but things like independent media sorted, independent education, judicial oversight, proper... maybe not a parliament, but a proper assembly that has genuine, sensible elections. I think the big problem is this area is so radicalised that just building buildings back isn't going to do anything.
Yeah, I would agree. But it's not just that, Andrea. It's the Zionists. They don't want Palestinians to be on the land. I mean, look what's going on in the West Bank. The settlers, they're literally torching. Like the other week ago, they torched a Christian village. I didn't even make any news in the Western media. No. I mean, to claim it's a Christian country, caring about Christian people, Palestinian Christians have been absolutely brutalized by the settlers and the Israeli state.
Yeah, I mean, look. There's no doubt that there is a problem with migration into Israel, specifically Jewish people as they see it returning to their homeland. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I met some of the settlers, and there are gradients of them. There are the absolute loonies with the porter cabins and the Israeli flags taking pot shots at people. But actually, the vast majority of people literally just can't afford to live in Israel proper because of property prices and are living in the West Bank because of that. The point I'm making is that I think there's a fair degree of peaceful people among the settlers, though clearly it's always going to be a problem like in Northern Ireland. If one population's expanding and the other is disbanding, then people will start encroaching on each other's territory.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw this week, Andrew, with the Israeli human rights group, B'Tselem. They released a report and did a press conference saying that it's just in Israel, it's ingrained for them to just dehumanize Palestinians, to just treat them, quote unquote, like human animals. hence why what they've done in Gaza is normal to the Israelis.
Well, I think, let's be clear. There are extremists there. There's no doubt about it. What I would always say in response is there are also voices of moderation, and I think one of the things that upsets me so much about what Hamas did was they deliberately targeted the voices of moderation in order to ensure that the more extreme elements in Israel succeeded in their campaign to ensure that there was an invasion, because fundamentally, for me, the incursion on the 7th of October was about provoking the Israelis in a way that would be impossible to ignore, which is dreadful, really.
But it has been going on before.
Yes, it has. Yeah,
October, of course. But it's just, personally, I like I said, I think Hamas, they should clear out now. The Palestinian Authority should go in Gaza and just run it temporarily.
How hard is it? So let me ask you a question. How hard is it as a British Muslim to just have a sensible and moderate debate about this? Because there are people, and there'll be people listening to this show and watching it right now, who just go, oh, well, he would say that, he's a Muslim. And I find that incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I probably would agree. I don't. There are some people who don't. I'm the opposite. I do think Israel, the Jewish people have a right to exist. But my problem is with the government and the Zionists and the settlers. They don't want Palestinians to exist. They want them moved out. They want them turfed out to Egypt or to Jordan. They don't want any Palestinians.
So let me ask you that question, right? So it's something that Donald Trump suggested. I mean, would it be sensible to literally move them out? I mean, I remember Bill Clinton asking this, although it was the other way around. Bill Clinton asked, well, what if the United States of America was to buy the home of every single settler and just give it to the Palestinians? I mean, you know, there comes a point in Gaza. I mean, if we were to say now to Gazans, you can all move to Egypt, how many of them would stay in Gaza? I mean, presumably a large number would go. Oh, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Ali's gone, but that was a tech fault, not him. So we're going to go to a break. We'll be back in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, I just want to say to you, because he's a pretty good caller, Ali in Leeds were relatively certain that his mobile phone ran out of batteries while he was talking to me. I wouldn't like you to think that suddenly we're having a sensible conversation and either I cut him off or he cut me off. It's possible. I don't think it's very likely. OK, Jerry is in Burton-on-Trent. Jerry, you're on Talk.
Hi there, Andre.
How are you?
I'd just like to talk about this Online Safety Act.
Go for it.
Creep situation that's gradually eroding our whole lives, not with the asylum seekers. But the party disingenuously are telling us that this is all about protecting children, yet we know full well it isn't.
No.
And I'd like to ask you about...
No, I think it is. I think there is protecting children within it, but I think there's also a bolt-on, which is preventing legitimate political debate. I think it's an excuse, part of it.
Absolutely. So I'm wondering, how close do you think are we likely to see Brit card coming into play? Because this is something we tend not to hear much about, other than this mention of having ID. How do you feel that's likely to be the next one on the list?
Well, the national ID card is something that the Home Office brings out with every Home Secretary. It loves the idea. I mean, in reality, the driving licence now is basically like a national identity card. The only difference is the concern was we were always worried that the police would be papers, please. But they're actually not like that in general. It's only when they arrest somebody that they tend to bother who they actually are, which I think is relatively sensible. But look, I mean, I think the reason probably the Home Office are not pushing national ID cards as much as they did in the past is because they now have so much access to so much data. But my worry remains, apart from a few egregious cases, the vast majority of this will be bullying people out of being open and honest, hence my dispute with the Sussex Police this week. Hello to everyone from Sussex Police. But also, I think there's this element of losing the data. The big worry I always have with the British government is someone will stick it on a memory card and leave it on the bus.
But don't you think it's even more insidious? Because you talk about a cashless society, you talk about a diminution of rights. You've got three guys from the States, Jim Jordan and two other colleagues coming over to start, taking a closer look at this situation of freedoms that we have in this or don't have in this country. And then you think to yourself, all these little things are sold as one package, but are delivering another.
But when you grew up, and when I grew up as well, by the way, even though we're different ages, we had a government, but we were not ruled in the way that we're ruled now. I mean, we are now minions of a government that just tells us what to do. The vast majority of people's lives in the 1950s, the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, and if you were to go back to the Victorian era, it would be even less than that. It wasn't about a government inspector. I didn't have to fill out a government form on a regular basis, or my parents didn't, in the 1980s. I got a little drone the other day, which I wanted to fly in my back garden. I've got 2 operator licenses and an insurance policy for it. Fair enough, OK. Some health and safety things have moved forward, but everything now... I mean, was it Napoleon that said that we were a country of shopkeepers? We're now a country of government inspectors. And I don't think it's necessarily the government's got any different. I just think it's now in all of our lives. I wrote to my local member of parliament when I lived in Putney about gay marriage. And I said that I believed that the state should not be the regulator of love at all. And actually, we should not bring in gay marriage, we should abolish state marriage. And what we should do is anybody who wishes to get married would get married in whatever way they want. And the same as with, say, you might have got a will that you can buy, a CD. Well, you probably don't buy it on CD-ROM anymore, but you did for a while, and you just fill out your will. Or you could go to a solicitor, or you can get a standard one from your religion, or you can do whatever. But the reason that my younger brother won't get married, as an example, is because the terms and conditions that the government has laid out for marriage is so egregiously unfair to a man that he believes that no bloke with any sanity would do it. So my point is, why is the government in my life when it comes to love? Why is government in my life when it comes to family? And actually, the fact that government are feral and stupid and weak wouldn't matter if they weren't doing everything for me.
Well, when, for example, facial recognition software is everywhere now, supermarkets, and they have to do it to go abroad even. And yet, some strange reason, asylum seekers don't seem to be vetted in any sense or controlled, so they don't even have any kind of ID or anything on them. That
was like during the period of coronavirus, where you weren't allowed in the country if you didn't have a PCR test, unless you got a small boat and you're entering illegally, in which case it was perfectly fine.
Well, and so there's got to be something more behind all this, hasn't there? There has to be. I know there's this conspiracy of Starmer and Davos and all that type of thing, but it really does.
No, well, let's look at the big thing that the British government used to do historically: war. Yeah. Right. Remember, every single war we almost lost. Right, it's only when the government was basically booted out of the way multiple times until we had what was it that idiot Chamberlain. Oh, this is peace in our time. It was only when the Brits pulled together the Second World War came anywhere near being organised properly. I mean, Dunkirk was not the turning point. Let's be honest, what really happened. The sailors of the South Coast said, leave the bloody Royal Navy to it, they ain't got hope in hell, and did it on their own in bloody dinghies, right? So you've got to remember that, the Napoleonic Wars, once again, just a complete catastrophe. First World War, no idea what was going on until ingenious engineers started inventing tanks and things like that. The British government has always been useless, but it never had the ability to drag the country down in the way it has the ability to drag it down now. That's the difference.
Do you think if they tried another lockdown that they would even go anywhere near as far?
Well, I'll tell you what I would say. If there is another lockdown, it's your patriotic duty to ignore the law. I'm sorry to say that. I think it is what has been done to this country and the young people of this country, the economics of this country, was truly shameful. But see, I have a different constitutional view. I don't believe that the House of Commons, the House of Lords and the Crown are empowered to do any of that anyway. I simply don't believe they hold. No, but nobody, when they were signing the Magna Carta, said, oh, by the way, you can't lock people up indefinitely when you see that there's some sort of illness outbreak. It's nonsense. They've claimed the right to do it. Look, OK, it's the social contract theory, but I don't believe it's strictly legal to have a lockdown. I mean, it's like the House of Commons saying, we're voting ourselves the right to castrate everyone. Are you really? Well, I won't be participating.
Absolutely. And I think now the British people are going to be far more politically aware and rebellious and sensitive to anything the government may choose to try and impose.
Well, I mean, Guido Fawkes asked today how many super injunctions there are. Well, of course, it's illegal to answer that question, but it does raise the question. Part of the Afghan resettlement scheme, and I've always said that I believe the data leak is a hoax. Effectively, what I've said is that I accept the leak happened. I don't believe it's a major issue. I believe it has been deliberately used in order to bring 100,000 Afghans to the UK. Remember, the total number mentioned on Facebook was 6 people, and the person that published those names then retracted it because he was then given free asylum to the UK, having blackmailed the British government. But part of the reason for the super injunction was that they said there might be civil disobedience over the fact 100,000 Afghans were coming to Britain. First time I would argue that a court has placed a super injunction on politics for fear that a genuine political debate might take place if the fact was known.
And that's the interesting thing between us and the States, isn't it? Lawfare was used extensively. Lawfare was used with us as far as Brexit and all that kind of thing. And interestingly, the populace did start becoming more aware, and they did start regrouping. And the number of bodies and local groups set up by Reform is astonishing. And I think the troops on the ground are becoming not just far more aware, but prepared to do something about it.
Well, I'll tell you the other thing that I think is interesting. Yeah. I always ask myself, and I don't know the answer to this, is what's going on here that our government is getting worse? Or is it that we finally are able to identify what they're up to? Because remember, for 50 years, they'd just go, oh, it's the EU, oh, it's the EU, it's the EU. I worked in the European Parliament, and I've got to be honest with you, the EU had a fair argument for saying it was the Brits' fault for a lot of the stuff that was going on. As an example, when the British government decided to lock people up for selling in pounds and ounces, there was nothing in the EU regulation said that someone should go to prison for selling something in pounds and ounces. That was British civil servants who did that. And so I think now the British government can't blame the European Union anymore. So we have to now start looking at the failings of our own system. And by God, we've identified a few.
And you're absolutely...
Oh, Jerry, we've lost you as well.
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Oh, OK. Well, I think you were about to say I'm absolutely right, so thank you, Jerry. I'll get rid of you. Deborah is in Oldham. Deborah, you're on Talk.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Do you?
Hello.
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 Am I with you?
Am I-
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, hang on.
Hello.
Turn my phone up.
Hello.
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 Hello, Andre.
Hello.
Hiya.
Hello. I can't hear her. Is she on? Can't hear her. Can't hear her. No, I'm joking. Okay,
Hello.
Deborah. Hello. Right, we've done that. Can we move on now? No, we're not going to do the hello anymore. Right, we've done that. We're not going down that red herring road. Right, come on, say something.
Well, fucking hell. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I left that in, but don't do it again. Right, come on. We've said hello and sworn. We've not done very well so far. Have we been to the pub tonight?
No, I haven't, actually. I've worked tonight. And
Have you? And you turned up to work in that condition?
Oh, don't be sarcastic.
I'm not being sarcastic. I'm being rude. It's different.
Oh.
Oh.
But do you know something?
Yeah.
You know your hair? You need to dye it blonde.
Right, why?
Oh. Because I'd rather you have blonde hair. Yeah?
Yeah, okay. You'd rather I had blood hair. Sorry, I thought that was a comma, not full stop. Sorry.
Oh, no, but you're so gorgeous looking.
Yeah, I know I am. Yeah, thanks. So what is the most attractive part of me?
What I am saying is, you know, Keir Starmer, why is he not stood up and asked so many questions without all his entourage or whatever they're called?
So does he answer questions without his entourage? He does on PMQs every single week, yeah. I mean, I don't know where the question's going. Right, okay, come on. Come on, let's get this together now. We can do this.
Oh, can I just speak to you again?
Yeah, you can just speak to me. What do you want to talk about? If it's love, we can talk about love. Or we can talk about
Oh.
I'm the doctor of love. Do you like that? Do you like that? I'm the doctor
I
of love.
love it, man. Oh, you're gorgeous.
What's your favourite thing about me?
Oh, because you speak and you know what you're speaking about.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But what you do is you're very conservative, aren't you?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say I'm a right winger.
You're very posh. You know, you're very posh.
There's nothing that says posh quite like Lee in Lancashire.
You are very posh. Oh my
Do you know what
goodness.
posh means? Do you know what posh means?
Yes, I know what posh means.
If you sail to India, you go port out and starboard home, so you avoid the worst of the waves.
Okay.
Deborah, what are you wearing?
I'm wearing a very nice.
You've got your nightie on, have you? Okay, right, let's not do that. Let's not do that.
Oh, no. But I do love you.
Thank you so much. So, Deb... Right, go on. Yeah. Your name was Deborah. It never suited you. When I said that when you grew up, get married and never split up. Oh, we never did it. Do you like pulp?
Pulp?
Do you know what this reminds me of? My brother bought a CB, right? And I listened to the conversations that were taking place and they were utterly inane. That is what this reminds me of. Deborah, I appreciate your taste in men, but it's time to go to a break.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is Talk. Let's go straight to the phone lines. Vicky is in Manchester. Vicky, you're on Talk.
Hiya.
Hiya.
So I just wanted to talk about student finance.
Do it.
So I'm 41 years old. I've only just discovered my career.
Yep.
I've worked in health and social care for 20 years.
Yes.
Decided to go into higher education, and I've signed these things. I'm signed up to student finance and stuff. Why can I not get that for free?
Yeah, so, I mean, as an undergraduate, if you were full-time, you should get some assistance, but you wouldn't get it, I don't think, if you're postgraduate or part-time. I don't think part-time students get a lot of financial support. What actually are you doing?
No, but I didn't do it when I was at 16. When I was 16, I worked in a pie shop.
Right.
Andre, to be honest with you.
Nothing wrong with that.
So I did, yeah, and then I worked in a clothes shop, and then, do you know what I mean? I had some pretty bad jobs. But then I've decided now at 40 to get a career, but my student finance debt now is £63,000.
And that's true, except for the fact it is worth pointing out that it's means tested. That means that if you don't earn, you won't pay it back. And now I personally think that we should be much more generous with students, but it is fair to say that the likelihood of you paying that full 63 grand back actually might be quite low, particularly if you're health and social care, simply because the pay in that sector is not very high.
But I will pay that back.
No, you won't necessarily, unless is it student debt or personal debt?
It's student debt. It's all student loans.
Yeah, so if it's from the student loan company, it's not paid. It's paid back based on your ability to pay it back, not the fact that you've got a job. So you only pay over a certain amount, and it's spread so far across your earnings that it shouldn't make a massive difference. Look, I don't believe you should be in £63,000 worth of debt, but the big problem with that debt is it sounds like an enormous number, but the rate that you would pay it back over your career, even if you paid it back at all, would be pretty small.
No, but if I continue my career as a social worker and I earn £5,000 a month, say, let's say as a massive an amp, say, then they're taking £400 a month off me.
Yeah, okay, but so I agree with you on that. But just think about what you've said, and this would be the argument. So I'm not in favour of tuition fees, but the argument goes from people who support it. Well, hang on a second. You've gone from earning a relatively small amount in things like a clothes shop and a pie shop to earning £60,000 a year. The reason that you've gone from that is partly your own hard work, but it's partly the education that you received. We've paid for 50% of it by the taxpayer, but you've got to pay for the other 50% because you're now a lot richer as a result. That's what the argument is.
What's the interest rate then?
The interest rate's only inflation, which in recent years has been a bit of a problem. But it should, your earnings should eclipse it should be reduced by the cost of living increase and indeed your pay increase. But 60 grand a year is a decent sniff, right?
I won't get that though, will I?
Well, you won't pay as much if you don't get it. So what people think is you have to pay back the 63 grand. You only pay it back incrementally, depending on what you can afford.
This is what I'm worried about.
Well, do you know what? That is why I don't support tuition fees, because people are afraid to go to university because they're afraid of these enormous debt sums. But the reality is you've done the right thing and you will be financially better off as a result of it. The problem is it just sounds awful.
I have done this, Andre. Listen to, I was, like I've just said, I was working in a pie shop. I've challenged myself massively. I've done the HND. I've done the degree, and now I'm on my Masters of Social Work.
Wow.
And I've just logged on to my student finance, and it's like, oh, yeah, you owe £63,000. And I'm like, what?
I mean, it's a colossal sum of money. There's no doubt about it. Why did you bother doing the Master's degree? Why not just go with the BA or it was BSc, I suppose, in social care? Why not just use that to become a social worker? Because at least what could have happened to you is...
You can't do a health and social care. No, health and social care degree. I can run nursing homes and stuff. And let's be honest, in this situation, we wouldn't want to do that, would we?
No. So to be an actual social worker, you'd need a master's.
Yeah, well, if you've already got a degree, yeah.
Sounds a bit extreme to me to require a master's degree. I don't disagree with you, but if you think about it, you get. I mean, for you to be a solicitor, you'd need a law practice course, you'd need. Well, if you didn't have a law degree, you'd only need a law practice course plus the training contract. The point I'm making is you don't need a master's degree to become a solicitor. Mind you, most solicitors aren't very good, but there you go. All right, Vicky, thanks so much. By the way, she's quite right. This does put a lot of people off getting better jobs, but I will say one thing. If you go from working in a pie shop to becoming a social worker, then I think that's probably a good thing and certainly something we would seek to encourage. Jamie in Nottinghamshire. Jamie, you're on Talk.
Oh, hey, man. Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing all right, mate. I'm doing all right.
Good. And then my thing is... you know, I'm English. My family's English. My family's been English for a long time.
Yes.
And I fear that we're losing that.
Yes.
I think it's coming in the next few years. You know, it might sound like a fantasy. A lot of people say, "Oh, you're crazy. But you know something? I feel like, you know something? I love England. I love being English, but I do not feel that patriotic. I don't feel patriotic anymore.
Well, I mean, I was talking to one of the producers on this show earlier, and he'd just recently been in France. I was in Wales, and I just realised how hard it is to live in the south of England, how it's become effectively a hostile environment for anybody who's a decent taxpayer. Bad public services, corrupt police, dodgy politicians, enormous tax burdens, laws 100%. On everything. I mean, when I leave this place, at 1:30 in the morning. Sadiq Khan's managed to conjure up traffic jams even when there's no cars on the street.
Yes.
And it's done deliberately.
Yep, 100%. And there's something, in a few years, are we English? Is this England? What are we doing? What have we done? Is it too late?
Well, I think,
maybe it's too late.
I will tell you one thing. A lot of England is still remarkably English. That is a depressing thing to say in of itself. I'll tell you the other way that I would defend.
Man, I feel defeated. I already feel defeated.
I know a lot of people like that.
Yet. We haven't even peaked. This hasn't even got to the worst. A few years, maybe a couple of years from now, people are going to wake up and think, "What have we done?"
Well, of course, the online safety bill is going to make that harder. The online safety bill is going to make it harder to criticise the government for uncontrolled immigration. Look, there's no doubt that the plan is to swamp the country with uncontrolled immigration.
I know, but why? But why, though? That's the thing. It can't be just down to Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer has got to just be the puppet. He's the puppet, and somebody else is in control. Think of the bigger picture. Right? Who wants the Western civilization destroyed?
Well, I mean, right? So let's just
Russia,
okay.
Russia, China.
Yeah,
they are pushing the propaganda.
Sure, let's just
LGBTQ and destroy the Western civilization.
Sure, okay. Let's just be clear. The problem in our own country, and Pete Barnes said it right earlier. The reality is, Keir Starmer does not believe that there's anything such as a nation state. He believes we're all citizens of the world and we should all be treated equally across the world. Well, of course, what that means is my part of the world is allowed to be infiltrated by people from third world dumps, and they bring over their third world culture to undermine our country. Now, that makes them individually richer, but of course it makes the world less able to cope with problems, and of course it makes my country worse.
100%. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
And why are you so depressed?
Where's it going up? What's England going to be by then?
Well, I think people like Sadiq Khan would like to see places like the whole of the United Kingdom to be similar to Newham. That is to say that probably a third Asian, a third black, and a third white. Yeah. I think that would be probably his. And
then what? And then what happens when? I'll tell you what. All the LGBTQ people. No offense to the trans communities or the whatever. But when Sharia law does take over, what happens to them?
I think, well,
what happens in Sharia law countries to the gays and the shans and all that?
Yeah, so if Britain were to enact Sharia law, then the punishment for homosexuality would be death.
Yeah, and then the woke community would think, "What the fuck?"
But that's not what actually happens. What happened in Iran was the Ayatollah Khomeini allied with the political left in order to get rid of the Shah of Iran, and then he killed all the political left. It's called the useful idiots. I mean, I don't think there's an Islamic invasion in this country. What I believe is happening is...
No. It's bigger than that. It is bigger than that. There is something above that that's pushing it, and it's just trying to figure out why. Why is Keir Starmer?
Well, but we don't. We are not. There was a great. There was a great speech. There was a great speech the other day. Great speech the other day by somebody who said that he never believed as a child that vanilla was a genuine flavour of ice cream, because he just thought, well, everything's vanilla, and then you put in different things. I think that's like British culture. Because British culture has been so powerful across the world, people don't believe it exists. They just believe that's the natural state of humanity. But you've got to remember, in most of the world, for most of history, you get an item by clunking your neighbour over the head and stealing it. Might has been right for most of the period. The problem with Keir Starmer, the problem with David Lammy, though there are multiple, is this genuine belief that if we are all set free, if all of us are equal across the world, then what will happen is fairness will break out. And I have to say that has not happened. Freedom, decency and fairness has often been enforced by force in our history. Thank you so much to Jamie in Nottinghamshire. Apologies, Jamie was getting a bit het up there, but I perhaps didn't give